Welcome to Vibration Architect, where ancient wisdom meets modern transformation. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns keep repeating in your life? What appears as random luck or misfortune is actually the precise operation of universal law, specifically the law of cause and effect. Every circumstance in your life today is the direct result of seeds you've planted through past thoughts, words, and actions. Understanding this fundamental truth gives you the power to consciously create your reality instead of feeling victimized by it. Today, we'll explore the Karma Code, revealing how you can master this universal law to shape your destiny with intention. If you're ready to stop blaming luck and start commanding your circumstances, subscribe now and join us on this journey of cosmic discovery. The Karma Code, mastering the law of cause and effect. Introduction: beyond luck and chance, the precision of universal law. In a world where many attribute their circumstances to luck, chance, or the whims of fate, there exists a more profound truth, one that has been understood by the greatest minds throughout history. This truth is that the universe operates according to precise, immutable laws, and perhaps none is more fundamentally important to your daily existence than the law of cause and effect. This principle, known in Eastern traditions as karma, in Western esoteric teachings as the law of compensation, and in modern scientific circles as causality, represents the cosmic algorithm that governs every aspect of human experience. It is neither mystical superstition nor religious dogma, but rather a fundamental mechanism of reality itself, as reliable as gravity, as consistent as mathematics, and as relevant to your life as the air you breathe. The pages that follow offer more than mere philosophical contemplation. They provide a practical framework for understanding how your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions create energetic imprints that inevitably return to you as the circumstances of your life. You will discover why certain patterns persist despite your conscious desire to change them, how to recognize the subtle ways you may be unwittingly creating unwanted outcomes, and most importantly, how to harness this universal principle to consciously architect the reality you desire. As we explore each facet of this cosmic law, from the seeds you sow through daily choices to the harvest you reap in relationships, health, and prosperity, you will gain increasing clarity about your role as both creator and experiencer of your life conditions. The power of this understanding cannot be overstated, for it represents the difference between living as a victim of circumstance and standing firmly in your power as a conscious creator. This knowledge has been carefully guarded throughout the ages, reserved for initiates of mystery schools and dedicated seekers of truth. Now, simplified yet uncompromised, it is presented here as a practical code for living, the Karma Code, that you may apply immediately to transform your experience of reality. Let us begin this journey beyond the illusions of randomness and into the precision and power of universal law. Chapter 1. Sowing the Seeds. Understanding actions, thought, word, deed, as causes. The universe operates as a vast intelligent field of energy that responds to every impulse introduced into it. Much like a farmer who plants seeds in fertile soil, you are constantly sowing energetic seeds into the cosmic field through three primary vehicles: your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. Each of these represents a distinct level of causation, with its own potency and characteristics, yet all operate under the same fundamental principle: that which is sown must, by cosmic law, be reaped. The threefold nature of causation. To fully comprehend how the law of cause and effect operates in your life, we must first understand the three levels through which you generate causes. Thought level causation. At the most subtle yet foundational level are your thoughts. The ancient Hermetic axiom, the all is mind, reveals that thought energy represents the primary building block of reality itself. Each thought you entertain, whether fleeting or persistent, conscious or unconscious, creates a vibration in the mental realm that begins the process of manifestation. These thought seeds are the most numerous, as your mind generates thousands of thoughts daily, but they also tend to be the least concentrated and less empowered through repetition, emotional intensity, or visualization. Consider how water, when consistently dripped onto stone, eventually creates an impression. Similarly, your habitual thought patterns, those you entertain regularly, carve energetic grooves in the universal substance, establishing templates for manifestation. This is why casual, random thoughts generally produce minimal effects, while deeply held beliefs and persistent mental patterns manifest with remarkable precision. Word-level causation. When thought is given voice, expressed through speech or writing, it gains additional power. Your words represent thought that has been sufficiently crystallized to take form in the physical world through sound vibration or symbol. The ancient mystery schools taught that the word holds creative power, a truth reflected in creation stories across cultures where reality is spoken into existence. Words carry a dual causative impact. They affect both the external world and your own internal state. When you verbalize a thought, you not only send that vibration outward, where it influences others and circumstances, but you also strengthen that thought pattern within yourself. This is why affirmations, when spoken with conviction, can accelerate manifestation, and why careless speech often returns as unwelcome circumstances that mirror precisely what was casually declared. Action-level causation. The most concrete form of causation occurs through physical action. When you translate thought and word into deed, you engage the full spectrum of creative force. Actions represent thought energy that has been sufficiently concentrated to overcome inertia and create change in the material world. These are the most powerful individual seeds you plant, as they involve the complete commitment of your being, mind, emotion, and physical body, aligned in a single direction. Actions carry immediate consequences in the physical realm, while simultaneously generating subtler ripples through the mental and emotional planes. A single significant action can override thousands of contradictory thoughts, which is why genuine transformation requires not just changed thinking, but changed behavior. The Buddhist teaching that, as you act, so shall you become, acknowledges this profound truth about causation. The varying potency of causes. Not all causes generate effects of equal magnitude. The potency of any cause, whether thought, word, or deed, is determined by several key factors: clarity and focus. A clearly defined thought, precisely articulated word, or deliberately executed action carries greater causative power than its vague or uncertain counterpart. This explains why focused intention amplifies manifestation. Emotional intensity. Thoughts, words, and actions charged with genuine emotion create more powerful causes than those executed mechanically or without feeling. Emotion acts as the fuel that propels the cause toward its effect. Persistence and repetition. Consistent repetition of any cause strengthens its impact. This principle explains why habitual patterns, whether constructive or destructive, tend to dominate your life experience. Alignment. Across levels. When your thoughts, words, and actions align in a single direction, you create causes of extraordinary potency. Conversely, when these levels conflict, thinking one thing while saying another and doing a third, you generate confusion in the universal field, resulting in mixed or weakened effects. The unconscious sour. It is crucial to understand that the law of cause and effect operates with perfect precision regardless of your awareness or intention. Much like gravity, which affects all objects without distinguishing between those that understand its principles and those that don't, this universal law responds to every cause you generate, whether consciously or unconsciously created. Most individuals move through life as unconscious sowers, planting seeds through reactive thoughts, careless words, and impulsive actions, then expressing surprise or dismay when these seeds inevitably germinate as the circumstances they encounter. They fail to recognize the direct connection between their internal states and external conditions, attributing their experiences to luck, fate, or others' actions rather than to their own causative power. Consider the person who habitually entertains thoughts of lack and limitation, regularly speaks about financial difficulties, and consistently acts from a position of scarcity, refusing opportunities, avoiding financial commitments, hoarding resources. This individual has created a powerful threefold cause that must, by universal law, manifest as continued financial constraint. Yet they often perceive themselves as victims of economic circumstances rather than as the architects of their financial reality. The delay between cause and effect. One reason many remain unaware of their causative role is the time lag that frequently exists between sowing and reaping. Unlike physical causation, where effect often immediately follows cause, touch fire and be burned instantly, many of the seeds you plant require time to germinate in the universal field before manifesting as tangible circumstances. This delay creates a causative blind spot, making it difficult to connect current conditions with their original causes, especially when those causes were generated months or years prior. Just as a farmer must wait for planted seeds to grow, the universal field operates according to natural gestation periods that vary depending on the nature of the cause, existing conditions, and other factors. Understanding this principle frees you from the frustration of expecting immediate results, while simultaneously empowering you to persist in generating positive causes, secure in the knowledge that appropriate effects must inevitably follow. Becoming a conscious cause creator. The mastery of your life begins with the recognition that you are not merely experiencing reality, but actively creating it through every thought, word, and deed. This awareness transforms you from an unconscious sower, randomly scattering seeds and harvesting unexpected consequences, into a deliberate creator who carefully selects, nurtures, and tends the causal seeds planted in the universal field. The first step in this transformation is developing heightened awareness of your thought patterns, speech habits, and behavioral tendencies. Begin to observe yourself as though from a slight distance, noting the quality and content of your internal dialogue, the nature of your conversations, and the character of your actions. This self-observation, practiced without judgment, gradually reveals the causative patterns that have shaped your current circumstances. With this awareness established, you can then begin the practical work of consciously selecting the causes you wish to generate. This involves cultivating discipline at each level. Thought discipline, deliberately choosing empowering thoughts and consistently redirecting attention away from limiting or negative mental patterns. Word discipline, speaking with intention, precision, and integrity, recognizing that each uttered word sets forces in motion that will return to you in kind. Action discipline, aligning your physical behaviors with your highest understanding, ensuring that what you do reflects what you desire to experience. The energetic echo. As we conclude this chapter, consider this fundamental truth. Every thought you think, every word you speak, and every action you take represents an energetic transmission sent into the universal field. Like sound waves echoing across a canyon, these energetic patterns radiate outward, interact with the fabric of reality, and inevitably return to their source, you, in the form of corresponding experiences. This is not mysticism, but cosmic mechanics, the precise operation of universal law that governs all of existence. Just as a farmer who plants corn cannot reasonably expect to harvest wheat, you cannot generate causes of one nature and expect effects of a different character. The universe, in its perfect intelligence, ensures that like produces like, with unwavering consistency. In the next chapter, we will explore how to recognize the effects currently manifesting in your life and trace them back to their causal origins, developing the discernment needed to understand your present circumstances as the natural harvest of previously sown seeds. Chapter 2. The Inevitable Harvest. Recognizing effects in current circumstances. In the natural world, no farmer who plants a field is surprised when crops emerge. The appearance of corn stalks after planting corn seeds represents not a miracle, but the predictable operation of natural law. Similarly, the circumstances, relationships, opportunities, and challenges that comprise your current life experience constitute your personal harvest, the inevitable effects germinated from causes you have previously sown. Reading the book of your life. Your present reality can be viewed as an elaborate text, written in the language of manifestation, that accurately reveals the nature and quality of your past causation. Just as a skilled botanist can identify a plant by examining its leaves, flowers, and fruit, you can develop the discernment to recognize the specific causes that have produced the effects now manifesting in your life. This process begins with the fundamental understanding that nothing in your experience is random or accidental. The Hermetic principle of causation states, every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. What appears as coincidence or chance is merely causation whose origins remain outside your current awareness. Consider your life circumstances in each major area: health, relationships, financial conditions, career development, emotional states, and spiritual understanding. Each represents a harvest grown from specific seeds planted through your predominant thoughts, words, and actions in that domain. The law operates with mathematical precision, ensuring that the effect invariably corresponds in nature and quality to its cause. The correspondence between cause and effect. To recognize the connection between current effects and their original causes, it is essential to understand the principle of correspondence that governs this relationship. The ancient Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as below, so above, reveals that patterns repeat across different planes of existence, creating recognizable signatures that connect cause with effect. Several key patterns of correspondence can guide your recognition. Quality correspondence. The qualitative nature of the effect mirrors the quality of its cause. Thoughts, words, and actions characterized by generosity naturally produce circumstances reflecting abundance. Those dominated by criticism inevitably attract experiences of being judged. This principle explains why individuals who habitually judge others frequently report feeling unfairly evaluated themselves. They are simply harvesting the qualitative energy they have sown. Intensity correspondence. The magnitude of an effect correlates directly with the intensity of its cause. Casual, fleeting thoughts typically generate subtle, easily overlooked effects, while deeply held beliefs, emotionally charged words, or committed actions produce more profound and noticeable consequences. This explains why certain areas of your life may show dramatic manifestations while others exhibit only minor fluctuations. The intensity of causation differs across these domains. Domain correspondence. While cross-domain effects certainly occur, for instance, emotional patterns affecting physical health, there exists a natural tendency for causes to produce effects within the same general life area. Mental causes primarily generate mental effects. Emotional causes produce emotional effects. Physical causes yield physical effects. This pattern creates recognizable signatures that facilitate the tracing of effects back to their causal origins. Identifying your personal harvest. To begin recognizing the effects currently manifesting in your life as the natural outcomes of previous causes, consider these 4 primary life domains and their typical cause-effect patterns. Material, financial domain. Your current financial situation, income level, debt, investment growth, material possessions, financial opportunities or constraints, represents the harvest of your historical relationship with abundance, value, and worth. Examine your predominant thoughts about money, your habitual statements regarding finances, and your consistent actions related to resources. Individuals who regularly affirm abundance while taking practical steps toward financial goals typically manifest increasing prosperity, while those who consistently focus on lack verbalize financial worry and act from scarcity consciousness inevitably experience material limitation. Consider the case of 2 entrepreneurs starting similar businesses. The first consistently thinks, "There is more than enough for everyone," speaks confidently about the value their business provides, and takes bold, strategic actions to grow their enterprise. The second habitually worries about competition, regularly discusses market challenges and limitations, and acts cautiously from fear of loss. Though external circumstances may appear identical, the law of cause and effect ensures that these different causal patterns produce dramatically different harvests over time. Relationship domain. The quality, depth, and nature of your current relationships mirror with perfect accuracy the relational causes you have generated. Individuals experiencing harmonious, supportive connections have inevitably sown seeds of authentic communication, emotional generosity, and consistent reliability. Those facing conflict, disconnection, or manipulation have often unconsciously created these precise conditions through corresponding causes. Particularly revealing is the consistent emotional tone of your relationships. If you repeatedly encounter partners, friends, or colleagues who exhibit similar emotional patterns, perhaps excessive neediness, emotional unavailability, or controlling behaviors, this represents not coincidence, but the precise operation of the law of cause and effect, responding to your own emotional patterns, relationship beliefs, and interpersonal habits. Health, physical domain. Your body serves as an exceptionally accurate register of cause and effect. Its current condition, energy levels, functional capacity, presence or absence of symptoms, overall vitality, reflects the cumulative impact of your thoughts about your physical self, your words regarding your body, and your actions affecting your physical vehicle. The connection between cause and effect in this domain extends beyond obvious physical causation, poor nutrition leading to health issues, to include the more subtle influence of mental and emotional causes. Persistent stress-producing thought patterns, negative self-talk about your body, and emotions like resentment or bitterness all generate specific physical effects according to universal law. Contemporary psychoneuroimmunology has begun to scientifically validate what ancient wisdom traditions have long taught: that thoughts and emotions create measurable physiological changes that accumulate over time. Mental spiritual domain. Perhaps the most direct correspondence between cause and effect occurs in your mental and spiritual development. Your current level of mental clarity, intuitive capacity, spiritual awareness, and inner peace represents the natural harvest of your attention practices, contemplative habits, and spiritual disciplines. Those who consistently direct attention toward expansive concepts engage in practices that quiet the mind and act in alignment with their highest understanding inevitably experience growing mental clarity and spiritual connection. Conversely, those who habitually focus on trivial concerns, engage in scattered thinking, and neglect contemplative practice invariably experience mental fragmentation and spiritual disconnection. The time factor in recognition. One of the greatest challenges in recognizing the connection between current effects and their causal origins lies in the variable time lag between sowing and harvesting. This delay, which may span months or even years depending on the nature of the cause and existing conditions, creates the illusion that present circumstances are disconnected from your own causative power. To overcome this perceptual barrier, it is helpful to adopt a broader time frame for your observations. Rather than seeking immediate one-to-one correlations between specific causes and effects, look for patterns that emerge over extended periods. Consider seasonal patterns. Just as agricultural cycles follow seasonal rhythms, your personal harvests often manifest in recognizable intervals. Financial conditions may show yearly patterns. Relationship dynamics may cycle through predictable phases. Health conditions may fluctuate according to seasonal stresses. These recurring patterns often reveal the operation of causes that have become so habitual you no longer consciously register them. Developmental thresholds. Certain effects appear only after causes have accumulated sufficient momentum to cross manifestation thresholds. Much like water that gradually fills a container until it suddenly overflows, causes may accumulate incrementally until reaching a critical mass that triggers seemingly sudden effects. This explains why destructive habits may appear consequence-free for extended periods before producing dramatic negative outcomes, and why positive practices may require persistent application before yielding noticeable results. Compounding effects. The law of cause and effect operates not in isolation, but in concert with the law of attraction, which ensures that like attracts like. This creates compounding effects where initial causes attract similar energies, accelerating and amplifying the manifestation process. A single positive thought, for instance, tends to attract similar thoughts, creating a cascade of increasingly powerful positive causation that eventually produces substantial positive effects. This compounding principle applies equally to negative causation. The misattribution trap. A significant obstacle to accurately recognizing effects is the human tendency toward misattribution, assigning causes to effects based on superficial appearances rather than underlying principles. This perceptual error takes several common forms. External attribution. Perhaps the most common error involves attributing your circumstances to external factors, other people's actions, economic conditions, societal structures, or random chance, rather than recognizing them as the natural harvest of your own causal pattern. While external factors certainly influence your experience, the law of cause and effect ensures that these influences can affect you only to the extent that they resonate with causes you have generated. Temporal confusion. Another frequent misattribution involves connecting current effects with recent causes when the actual causal origins may lie much further in the past. This error often leads to frustration when newly adopted positive practices fail to immediately override the momentum of long-established negative causation. Domain misidentification. Many individuals fail to recognize cross-domain effects, looking for causes exclusively within the same life area where effects are manifesting. They may seek the cause of physical symptoms solely in physical factors, overlooking the potential influence of mental or emotional causes, or attribute relationship challenges entirely to interpersonal dynamics without examining their own belief systems. Developing discernment. The ability to accurately connect current effects with their causal origins, a skill the ancient wisdom traditions called discernment, develops through intentional practice. Consider these approaches for cultivating this essential capacity. Reflective inquiry. When examining any significant circumstance in your life, ask, what thoughts, words, and actions of mine could have contributed to creating this condition? Pose this question with genuine curiosity rather than self-judgment, allowing insights to emerge naturally rather than forcing conclusions. Pattern recognition. Look for recurring themes across different life areas. If similar emotional dynamics appear in various relationships, or if particular challenges repeatedly emerge in different contexts, these patterns often reveal fundamental causal templates operating below conscious awareness. Inner listening. Regular periods of quiet contemplation, whether through formal meditation or simple reflective silence, create the mental space necessary for subtle connections between cause and effect to become apparent. The intuitive mind often perceives causal relationships that escape rational analysis. Feedback. Receptivity. Other people frequently perceive patterns in your life that remain invisible to you. Cultivating openness to feedback, especially from those who demonstrate wisdom and genuine care for your well-being, can illuminate causal connections you might otherwise miss. The gift of recognition. Far from being a burden or source of self-recrimination, the ability to recognize current effects as the harvest of previous causes represents one of the most empowering capacities you can develop. This recognition liberates you from the illusion of victimhood, revealing your role as the primary architect of your life experience. When you clearly perceive the connection between what you have sown and what you are now reaping, you gain the freedom to make different causal choices. Rather than feeling constrained by circumstances that appear externally imposed, you recognize your inherent power to create new causes that must, by universal law, produce corresponding new effects. This shift from unconscious reaction to conscious creation represents the essential transition that the law of cause and effect is designed to facilitate. Through the feedback mechanism of manifested effects, the universe continuously educates you about the causal power of your thoughts, words, and actions, inviting ever-growing awareness of your creative capacity. In the next chapter, we will explore the energetic mechanics through which your thoughts and emotions generate the subtle vibrations that eventually crystallize as your tangible life experience. Understanding the how behind the universal principle that ensures your harvest invariably reflects the seeds you have sown. Chapter 3. The Energetic Echo. How thoughts and emotions create karmic ripples. To truly master the law of cause and effect, One must understand not merely that thoughts, emotions, words, and deeds create your life experience, but how this process actually operates. The ancient Hermetic teaching that all is mind, the universe is mental, points to the fundamental mechanism behind karma, the fact that reality itself is, at its core, an energetic phenomenon responding to mental impulses. The vibrational nature of existence. Modern quantum physics has confirmed what mystics have taught for millennia, that seemingly solid matter is actually concentrated energy vibrating at specific frequencies. Your physical body, material possessions, and the world you perceive through your senses all represent energy in various states of vibration and organization. This understanding reveals the true nature of reality as a vast sea of intelligent energy. What some traditions call the quantum field, others the Akashic record, and still others the universal mind. Within this energetic medium, your thoughts and emotions are not abstract or intangible phenomena, but actual energetic emissions that generate specific vibrational signatures. Every thought you entertain produces measurable electromagnetic frequencies that radiate from your being into the universal field. These thought vibrations vary in frequency and amplitude, depending on their quality and the emotional energy with which they are charged. Consider this principle. Everything in existence maintains its form and function through vibration at specific frequencies. Change the vibration, and you change the manifestation. Your thoughts and emotions are the primary tools through which you alter your personal vibrational signature, thereby changing what you attract and create in the physical world. Thought forms, the building blocks of manifestation. In the esoteric tradition, concentrated thought energy is understood to create what are called thought forms, coherent energetic patterns that persist in the mental plane even after the initial thought has passed. The theosophical teachings describe these thought forms as actual entities possessing three characteristics. Vibrational quality. Each thought form vibrates at a frequency corresponding to its essential nature. Thoughts of love, abundance, and harmony generate high-frequency vibrations, while thoughts of fear, lack, and conflict produce denser, lower-frequency patterns. Magnetic properties. Thought forms possess inherent magnetic qualities that attract similar energies according to the law of attraction. This magnetic aspect explains how initial thoughts tend to gather momentum by drawing similar thought patterns, creating escalating cycles of either positive or negative manifestation. Persistence. Once created, thought forms demonstrate remarkable persistence, continuing to exist and exert influence in the mental plane. The longevity and strength of a thought form depend on three factors: the clarity of the original thought, the emotional energy invested in it, and the frequency of its repetition. This understanding of thought forms provides the mechanical explanation for how your mental activity creates tangible effects in your life experience. Each thought you entertain contributes to the formation of these energetic patterns, which eventually precipitate into physical circumstances that match their essential vibrational signature. The emotional amplifier. If thoughts provide the directional content of your creative activity, emotions supply the power that propels these thought forms toward manifestation. Emotions represent energy in motion, literally emotion, that amplifies and accelerates the vibrational patterns established by your thoughts. This emotional component explains why identical thoughts held by different individuals, or even by the same individual at different times, can produce varying results. A thought of prosperity entertained with genuine feelings of abundance, gratitude, and expectancy creates a high-amplitude vibration with substantial manifestation potential. The same conceptual thought, when accompanied by underlying doubt, anxiety, or unworthiness, generates a conflicted vibration with diminished creative power. Your emotional state functions as a vibrational signature that the universe recognizes and mirrors back to you in the form of corresponding circumstances. This explains why traditional wisdom teachings place such emphasis on emotional mastery, not as moral imperative, but as practical necessity for conscious creation. The karmic echo. How energetic patterns return. The universal principle that ensures your energetic emissions return to you as life experience has been called many names across traditions. Karma in Eastern philosophy, the law of compensation in Western esoteric teaching, and reaping what you sow in Judeo-Christian texts. Regardless of terminology, this principle operates through three primary mechanisms: resonance and attraction. Your dominant thought patterns and emotional states establish a personal vibrational signature that automatically attracts people, circumstances, and events of corresponding frequency. This occurs not through mystical reward or punishment, but through the natural physics of resonance, whereby like frequencies are drawn to one another. Consider how a tuning fork vibrating at a specific frequency will cause another tuning fork calibrated to the same frequency to begin vibrating in sympathy, even without physical contact. Similarly, your energetic emissions create resonance patterns that activate corresponding potentials in your environment. If you consistently vibrate with thoughts and emotions of peace and harmony, you naturally attract and activate peaceful, harmonious circumstances and relationships. Perceptual filtering. Your vibrational state also determines what aspects of reality you notice and experience from the infinite field of possibilities. Like a radio receiver tuned to a specific frequency, your consciousness registers only those aspects of reality that match your dominant vibration. Two individuals can encounter identical external circumstances, yet have radically different experiences based on their internal vibrational states. One person walking through a neighborhood might notice beauty, friendly faces, and signs of prosperity, while another, passing through the same area, might perceive danger, hostility, and scarcity. Both are experiencing a reality that resonates with their internal condition. Direct manifestation. Beyond attraction and perception, your energetic patterns actually participate in creating the circumstances you encounter. The concentrated thought forms you generate interact with universal substance to precipitate specific experiences that would not otherwise manifest in your reality. This creative mechanism operates constantly, regardless of your awareness or intention. Each thought you entertain, each emotion you cultivate, contributes to this ongoing manifestation process, creating ripple effects that eventually return as the conditions of your life. The ripple effect, expanding circles of influence. When you cast a stone into still water, it creates concentric ripples that extend outward from the point of impact. Similarly, each thought, emotion, word, and action you generate creates energetic ripples that propagate through the universal field, affecting not only your own experience, but influencing the broader environment in ever-widening circles. These ripples operate according to several important principles. Diminishing amplitude. As ripples extend outward, their amplitude naturally diminishes with distance. Similarly, the impact of your energetic emissions tends to be strongest in your immediate experience and gradually decreases in more distant relationships and circumstances. Interference patterns. When multiple ripples interact, they create interference patterns, either amplifying or diminishing each other's effects. This explains why collectively held thoughts and emotions, such as cultural beliefs or mass consciousness, can either reinforce or dilute your individual creative patterns. Reflection and return. Just as waves reaching a shoreline reflect back toward their source, your energetic ripples eventually return to you, often transformed by their journey through the universal field. This reflection principle ensures that what you send out into the world ultimately comes back to you, though sometimes in forms that may not be immediately recognizable as related to their original cause. The time delay in energetic returns. One of the most confusing aspects of karmic ripples is the variable time delay between energetic emission and experiential return. This delay occurs due to several factors: vibrational density, higher frequency thoughts and emotions, love, joy, peace, tend to manifest more rapidly than lower frequency patterns, fear, anger, despair, which must navigate through denser energetic mediums before precipitating as physical experience. Pattern complexity. Simple, clear thought patterns generally manifest more quickly than complex or contradictory ones. When your desires conflict with subconscious beliefs or when you entertain contradictory thoughts about the same subject, These complex interference patterns require more time to resolve into coherent manifestation. Accumulated momentum. Your existing energetic patterns possess considerable momentum that new thoughts must overcome before creating noticeable change. This is why long-standing conditions often demonstrate resistance to transformation. Despite your best efforts at positive thinking, you are encountering the manifestation lag created by years of contrary thought habits. Cosmic timing. Some effects appear only when conditions have ripened to support their manifestation. Just as a seed requires proper soil, temperature, and moisture to germinate, certain karmic effects await appropriate circumstances before becoming evident in your experience. Emotional contagion and collective karma. Your energetic emissions do not occur in isolation, but interact with the emissions of others, creating collective fields of influence that affect everyone within their range. This principle, sometimes called emotional contagion, explains how environments, organizations, and societies develop characteristic energetic signatures that influence all who participate in them. Research has demonstrated that emotions literally spread from person to person, with one individual's emotional state affecting others up to 3 degrees of separation away. This understanding reveals the profound responsibility inherent in your emotional choices. Each feeling you cultivate potentially influences thousands of others through ripple effects you may never directly witness. Similarly, collective thought patterns create group karma that manifests as shared experiences, cultural conditions, and historical trends. When a critical mass of individuals maintains similar thoughts and emotions about a particular subject, they establish powerful collective thought forms that can dominate the manifestation patterns of entire societies. This collective dimension explains why individual karmic patterns sometimes appear overridden by larger social conditions. Your personal vibration interacts constantly with these collective fields, either reinforcing them through resonance or helping to transform them through conscious non-participation in limiting collective beliefs. The permanent record, Akashic imprints. Ancient wisdom teachings across traditions describe a subtle medium that records and preserves every thought, emotion, and action ever generated. Called the Akashic records in Eastern philosophy, the Book of Life in Western mysticism, or the universal mind in New Thought, this repository represents the complete energetic history of all consciousness. Your karmic patterns are precisely recorded in this medium, creating what might be called your energetic signature or vibrational profile. This signature determines what you attract and experience, serving as the blueprint from which your life circumstances are continually constructed. While this concept might initially suggest predestination, it actually reveals your tremendous creative freedom. At any moment, you can begin generating new energetic patterns that, with sufficient clarity and persistence, will alter your Akashic signature and consequently transform your experience. The past does not determine your future, except to the extent that you continue to vibrate in resonance with established patterns. Practical application: working with energetic echoes. Understanding the mechanics of karmic ripples provides practical tools for conscious creation. Consider these applications of these principles. Vibrational awareness. Begin monitoring your energetic emissions by regularly checking your predominant thoughts and emotional states. Ask yourself, what am I broadcasting into the universal field right now? And is this the vibrational signature I wish to have echoed back to me as experience? Pattern interruption. When you notice yourself generating thoughts and emotions that contradict your desired experience, consciously interrupt these patterns. This might involve techniques such as thought substitution, pattern reframing, or simply bringing mindful awareness to automatic reactions. Energetic momentum. Recognize that establishing new vibrational patterns requires persistence and consistency. Rather than expecting instant transformation, commit to maintaining aligned thoughts and emotions with sufficient consistency to build momentum in your desired direction. Emotional integrity. Practice emotional honesty by acknowledging your true feelings rather than suppressing or denying them. Then deliberately choose whether to continue amplifying these emotions or to consciously shift toward more empowering emotional states. Environmental attunement. Become sensitive to the energetic fields of the environments, relationships, and information sources you regularly engage with. Limit exposure to vibrations that contradict your intentions while increasing participation in fields that support your desired creations. Beyond cause and effect, transcendent awareness. As your understanding of energetic echoes deepens, you may begin to glimpse a profound truth: that the ultimate purpose of the law of cause and effect is not to bind you within an endless cycle of action and reaction, but to guide you toward transcendent awareness of your creative nature. The highest spiritual teachings suggest that as you become fully conscious of your role as both creator and experiencer, you gain the capacity to step outside the mechanical operation of karma into what some traditions call grace or divine flow. From this elevated perspective, you no longer create from ego-based desire or fear, but allow universal intelligence to express through you in perfect alignment with the highest good of all concerned. This transcendent position does not negate the law of cause and effect, but fulfills its ultimate purpose, revealing your essential unity with the creative intelligence of the universe itself. The karmic echoes you experience become not simply consequences to be managed, but sacred feedback guiding you toward ever more perfect expression of your divine potential. As we continue into the next chapter, we will explore how to identify and interrupt negative karmic cycles that may be operating in your life, transforming patterns of limitation into pathways of conscious creation. Chapter 4. Breaking negative cycles, identifying and interrupting harmful patterns. The recognition that your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions create energetic patterns that return as your life experience leads to a crucial question. What can be done when you find yourself caught in negative karmic cycles that continue to generate unwanted circumstances? In this chapter, we explore the practical process of identifying, interrupting, and transforming the self-perpetuating patterns that may be limiting your experience. The anatomy of karmic cycles. Before examining how to break negative patterns, it is essential to understand their structure. Karmic cycles typically follow a four-phase sequence that, once initiated, tends to self-perpetuate unless consciously interrupted. Phase 1. Causal thought emotion. Every cycle begins with a specific thought pattern or emotional response, often triggered by external circumstances, but rooted in underlying beliefs about yourself and reality. These initial thoughts and emotions establish the vibrational foundation for the entire cycle. Phase 2. Behavioral expression. The initial thought emotion generates corresponding behaviors, words spoken, actions taken, or sometimes actions consciously withheld. These behaviors represent the thought pattern crystallized into physical expression. Phase 3. Manifestation. Through the mechanisms explored in previous chapters, these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors attract or create matching circumstances that appear in your experience, often seeming to happen to you, rather than being recognized as the natural effects of your energetic emissions. Phase 4. Reinforcement. When the manifested circumstances appear, they typically trigger the same thoughts and emotions that initiated the cycle, thereby restarting the sequence and creating a self-reinforcing loop that can continue indefinitely. Consider the following example of a common negative cycle. A person holds a deeply rooted belief that I'm not good enough, causal thought emotion. When professional opportunities arise, this belief generates hesitation, self-sabotage, or failure to fully engage their capabilities, behavioral expression. These behaviors naturally produce limited advancement, rejection, or underperformance, manifestation. These disappointing results then trigger the thought, this proves I'm not good enough, strengthening the original belief and reinitiating the cycle, reinforcement. What makes these cycles particularly challenging to recognize is that Phase 3, manifestation, appears to provide objective evidence confirming the validity of the original limiting belief, when in fact, it merely reflects that belief projected into physical experience. Identifying your negative patterns. Breaking free from limiting karmic cycles begins with accurately identifying the specific patterns operating in your life. This requires developing what might be called pattern recognition vision, the ability to perceive recurring themes beneath seemingly diverse circumstances. Consider these approaches for developing this essential perception. Circumstantial analysis. Examine recurring situations in your life, particularly those that generate frustration, disappointment, or limitation. Look for thematic similarities rather than surface differences. For instance, do your relationships consistently end for different stated reasons, but always around the same stage of development? Do professional opportunities repeatedly materialize only to dissolve before completion? These recurring circumstances, despite varying details, often point to underlying karmic patterns. Emotional mapping. Your emotional responses provide valuable clues to karmic patterns. Notice which emotions arise most frequently in your experience and the specific circumstances that trigger them. Emotions like rejection, abandonment, betrayal, or inadequacy, when repeatedly experienced across different situations, usually indicate active karmic cycles related to these themes. Belief excavation. Since all karmic cycles originate in thought patterns based on core beliefs, identifying these foundational assumptions is crucial. Ask yourself, what would I have to believe about myself or reality for these situations to keep appearing in my life? The answer often reveals the causal belief at the cycle's origin. Resistance. Reflection. Areas of life where you experience strong resistance, procrastination, or avoidance often conceal important karmic patterns. The very energy invested in resistance points to significant underlying beliefs and emotions that maintain cycle momentum. Feedback integration. Others often perceive your patterns more clearly than you can yourself. Without surrendering your discernment, consider feedback from trusted individuals about behaviors or situations they notice repeating in your life. Their perspective may illuminate blind spots in your self-perception. The 7 common karmic cycles. While karmic patterns express through infinite variations, certain archetypal cycles appear with remarkable consistency across human experience. Recognizing these common patterns can accelerate your identification process. The worthiness cycle. Originating in beliefs about being undeserving or insufficient, this cycle generates behaviors that create experiences of rejection, exclusion, or falling short of goals, which then reinforce the original unworthiness belief. The trust-betrayal cycle. Rooted in beliefs about the unreliability of others or life itself, this cycle produces behaviors that either attract untrustworthy individuals or unconsciously sabotage trustworthy relationships, creating experiences that confirm the expectation of betrayal. The abundance-scarcity cycle. Stemming from beliefs about limitation and insufficiency, this cycle generates behaviors related to hoarding, excessive caution, or prosperity-limiting choices that create financial constraints, which then validate the original scarcity beliefs. The recognition-invisibility cycle. Based on beliefs about being unseen or unappreciated, this pattern creates behaviors that either diminish your presence or create resistance to receiving acknowledgement, resulting in experiences of being overlooked that confirm the initial belief. The safety-danger cycle. Originating in beliefs about the fundamental perilousness of existence, this cycle produces hypervigilance, avoidance behaviors, or unconscious attraction to threatening situations that create experiences confirming the expectation of danger. The autonomy-control cycle. Rooted in beliefs about powerlessness or vulnerability to external control, this pattern generates either excessive rebellion or unusual compliance, creating relationships and circumstances that reinforce the original autonomy concerns. The connection-abandonment cycle. Stemming from beliefs about the inevitability of loss or separation, this cycle produces behaviors that create emotional distance or premature relationship termination, resulting in the very abandonment experiences that confirm the initial expectation. Identifying which of these archetypal cycles most closely resembles your recurring patterns provides valuable insight into the specific karmic themes requiring your attention. The pattern interruption process. Once you have identified active negative cycles in your experience, you can begin the process of conscious interruption. Unlike many popular manifestation approaches that focus exclusively on generating new causes, effective pattern interruption requires systematic intervention at each phase of the cycle. Breaking phase. 1. Thought to emotion. Interruption. Since all cycles begin with specific thought patterns and emotional responses, developing the capacity to catch these initial reactions before they gain momentum represents the most fundamental form of interruption. Practices such as mindfulness meditation, cognitive reframing, and emotional awareness training strengthen your ability to recognize and redirect causal thoughts before they trigger the full cycle. The key insight here involves recognizing that thoughts and emotions, while powerful, are not inevitable responses to circumstances, but choices available to your conscious awareness. By developing what Buddhist traditions call the witnessing consciousness, you create a space between stimulus and response where cycle interruption becomes possible. Breaking phase 2. Behavioral pattern. Disruption. When limiting thoughts and emotions have activated, they naturally generate corresponding behaviors that further reinforce the cycle. Consciously choosing different behaviors, even when the initial thoughts and emotions remain active, creates powerful pattern interruption. This might involve speaking up when you would normally remain silent, setting boundaries where you would typically acquiesce, reaching out when you would customarily withdraw, or taking a calculated risk when you would usually choose security. These deliberate behavioral contradictions of the active pattern send new causal signals into the universal field. Breaking phase 3. Manifestation. Recognition. When circumstances appear that seem to confirm your limiting beliefs, consciously recognizing them as reflections of previous energetic patterns rather than objective reality creates significant cycle interruption. This perceptual shift transforms what would normally be reinforcing experiences into opportunities for growth and pattern release. Practice asking, how is this circumstance reflecting beliefs I have held? What is this situation revealing about my previous thought patterns? This inquiry transforms seeming obstacles into valuable feedback rather than confirmations of limitation. Breaking phase 4. Response. Redirection. Perhaps the most powerful interruption occurs at the reinforcement phase, when limiting circumstances typically trigger the same thoughts and emotions that initiated the cycle. By consciously choosing different interpretations and emotional responses to these circumstances, you effectively prevent cycle regeneration. This involves developing what some traditions call responsibility, the capacity to choose your response to any situation rather than reacting automatically based on established patterns. With practice, you can learn to respond to traditionally triggering circumstances with curiosity, compassion, or even gratitude for the growth opportunity they present. The resistance threshold. An essential understanding when interrupting negative karmic cycles is the concept of the resistance threshold, the point at which established patterns generate maximum opposition to change attempt. This resistance typically manifests in 3 primary forms. Internal resistance. As you attempt to alter established patterns, you will likely experience intensified internal discomfort in the form of anxiety, doubt, or compelling rationalizations for returning to familiar behaviors. This resistance occurs because established neural pathways resist reconfiguration, creating the temporary discomfort that accompanies all significant growth. Circumstantial resistance. The external conditions created by long-standing patterns often demonstrate remarkable persistence, sometimes even intensifying when you begin serious change efforts. This darkest before dawn phenomenon represents the momentum of previous causation still manifesting even as you generate new causes. Relational resistance. People in your life who have adapted to your established patterns may unconsciously or consciously resist your pattern-breaking efforts, as your transformation challenges the stability of existing relationship dynamics. This resistance rarely reflects deliberate opposition, but rather the natural homeostatic tendencies of all systems. Understanding that resistance reliably appears at predictable thresholds allows you to recognize it as confirmation that meaningful change is occurring, rather than evidence that your efforts are failing. The appearance of resistance indicates you are approaching the critical mass required for pattern transformation. The role of conscious substitution nature abhors a vacuum, and this principle applies equally to karmic patterns. Attempting to simply eliminate negative cycles without consciously establishing preferred alternatives typically results in either pattern re-emergence or the unconscious adoption of different but equally limiting cycles. Effective pattern transformation therefore requires not just interruption, but conscious substitution, the deliberate installation of new thought-emotion-behavior sequences that align with your desired experience. This substitution process involves several key components. Belief reformulation. Identify the limiting belief at the core of the negative cycle and consciously formulate an expansive alternative that feels both resonant and plausible. For instance, if the core belief has been, "I'm fundamentally unworthy of love," a resonant alternative might be, "I am worthy of love and am learning to fully receive it," rather than an affirmation that feels entirely disconnected from your current self-perception. Emotional cultivation. Deliberately practice generating the emotional states that correspond to your desired experience, recognizing that emotions represent energy in motion that propels manifestation. This cultivation might involve appreciation practices, joy amplification, or consciously experiencing the feeling of already having what you desire to create. Behavioral implementation. Design and consistently execute specific behaviors that express your new belief system and emotional state, creating tangible evidence of your transformed pattern. These behaviors establish new neural pathways while generating fresh causal forces in the universal field. Environmental restructuring. Modify your physical and social environments to support your new patterns rather than triggering old ones. This might involve changing certain relationships, altering your living or working space, or adjusting the information you regularly consume. Through this systematic substitution process, you gradually establish new karmic patterns that generate experiences aligned with your conscious intentions rather than your historical limitations. The timeline of transformation. One of the most common questions regarding pattern interruption concerns the time required for complete transformation. While individual circumstances vary significantly, understanding the typical timeline helps manage expectations and sustain effort through the necessary phases. Awareness phase, 1 to 3 months. The initial period of transformation involves developing clear perception of your existing patterns, their origins, and their manifestation mechanics. During this phase, the patterns continue operating largely unchanged, but your relationship to them shifts from unconscious participation to conscious observation. Interruption phase, 3 to 6 months. As awareness stabilizes, you begin consistently interrupting the patterns at various cycle points. During this phase, you'll experience a mix of old pattern expression and successful interruptions, with the balance gradually shifting toward the latter. This period often involves the greatest discomfort as resistance reaches its peak. Substitution phase, 6-12 months. With consistent interruption, weakening the original patterns, deliberate implementation of new thought-emotion-behavior sequences becomes increasingly effective. During this phase, you'll notice the first significant shifts in external circumstances, though intermittent regressions to old patterns remain common. Integration phase, 1 to 2 years. The new patterns gradually become your default operating system, requiring decreasing conscious effort to maintain. During this phase, external circumstances consistently reflect your transformed vibration, and any remaining vestige of the original patterns serves as an opportunity for deeper healing rather than a source of limitation. Transcendence phase, 2+ years. Eventually, you reach a point where the original limiting patterns no longer hold any energetic charge or manifestation potential. At this stage, you can encounter triggering circumstances without activating old responses, having fully transcended the patterns that previously defined your experience. This timeline should be understood not as a rigid prescription, but as a general framework that provides realistic expectations for the transformation process. Some patterns dissolve more quickly, particularly those with minimal emotional charge or recent origin. while deeply entrenched patterns established in early life may require extended work. The initiatory perspective on pattern breaking. Ancient wisdom traditions viewed the process of breaking negative cycles not merely as problem-solving, but as sacred initiation, a purposeful journey of consciousness expansion through which the soul evolves. Adopting this initiatory perspective transforms pattern breaking from mere self-improvement into profound spiritual practice. From this viewpoint, the negative cycles appearing in your life represent not random misfortunes or failures, but precisely calibrated evolutionary catalysts designed to reveal unconscious material. Patterns bring to conscious awareness the beliefs, emotions, and perceptions that would otherwise remain buried in the subconscious mind, making the invisible visible so it can be transformed. Develop spiritual capacities. The process of identifying and interrupting limiting cycles develops essential spiritual faculties like discernment, persistence, compassion, and conscious choice that serve your broader evolutionary journey. Transcend duality. Through the experience of both limitation and liberation, pattern breaking initiates you into the transcendent awareness that ultimately exists beyond all polarities, including the very concepts of positive and negative. This initiatory perspective provides sustaining purpose during challenging phases of transformation, revealing the deeper significance of what might otherwise appear as merely frustrating obstacles or setbacks. Practical techniques for pattern interruption. The theoretical understanding of pattern breaking must be complemented by practical techniques that facilitate actual transformation. Consider implementing these proven approaches. Pattern inventory journal. Maintain a dedicated journal documenting the specific thought, emotion, behavior, manifestation sequences you observe operating in your life. This written record accelerates pattern recognition while creating objective perspective on subjective experience. Pattern interruption. Triggers. Establish environmental cues that remind you to check your current thoughts and emotions, particularly in situations that typically activate limiting patterns. These might include phone alarms, colored wristbands, or strategic notes placed in your environment. Future self-dialogue. Regularly engage in written or spoken dialogue with your future self, who has already transcended the limiting patterns you're currently addressing. This practice strengthens your connection to pattern-free possibilities while providing intuitive guidance for the transformation process. Pattern transformation. Partnerships. Work with trusted individuals who agree to compassionately highlight when they observe your limiting patterns activating. These accountability relationships accelerate awareness development while providing support through challenging transformation phases. Pattern release. Rituals. Create personalized ceremonies that symbolically represent your conscious release of limiting patterns and commitment to new possibilities. These rituals access deeper aspects of consciousness that respond powerfully to symbolic representation. Energy psychology techniques. Methods such as emotional freedom technique, tapping, specific breathing patterns, or focused inquiry processes can rapidly interrupt pattern activation at the energetic level, preventing full cycle manifestation. Higher self-consultation. Through meditation, contemplative writing, or similar practices, regularly consult the wisest aspect of your consciousness for guidance regarding your specific patterns and their transformation. This inner wisdom often provides insights unavailable to analytical thinking. Transmuting karma, the alchemical dimension. In esoteric tradition, the highest form of pattern breaking involves not merely interrupting negative cycles, but actually transmuting their energy into positive, creative force, a process analogous to the alchemical transformation of lead into gold. This transmutation represents the ultimate pattern interruption, in which the very energy that has created limitation becomes fuel for liberation. This alchemical dimension involves three essential practices: radical acceptance. Rather than resisting or rejecting the limiting patterns in your experience, you fully acknowledge their presence and the role they have played in your development. This acceptance, far from indicating resignation, actually releases the energetic charge that sustains the patterns. Grateful extraction. From each limiting pattern, consciously extract the gifts, lessons, strengths, and wisdom it has helped you develop. This practice reveals that even the most challenging patterns have contributed valuable elements to your evolution. Intentional redirection. The energy previously invested in maintaining limiting patterns becomes consciously redirected toward preferred creations, utilizing the same force for constructive rather than limiting purposes. Through this alchemical approach, nothing in your experience is rejected or wasted. All is transformed into fuel for consciousness expansion and deliberate creation. The moment of choice. As we conclude this exploration of breaking negative cycles, remember that liberation begins with recognizing that each moment offers a fresh choice point, an opportunity to either perpetuate established patterns or initiate new causal sequences. Regardless of how long certain cycles have operated in your life, the present moment always contains the potential for pattern interruption. This understanding reveals perhaps the most powerful truth about karmic cycles. Their persistence depends entirely on your continued participation. The moment you withdraw your energetic investment from a pattern, through awareness, interruption, and conscious substitution, its dissolution becomes inevitable, for no pattern can survive without the life force of your attention and belief. In the next chapter, we will explore the crucial role of intention in karmic creation, examining how your underlying motives shape the quality and character of what you manifest through the law of cause and effect. Chapter 5. The role of intention. Why the why behind the action matters. In the mechanics of karma and the operation of universal law, the external action is merely the visible tip of a much deeper causal iceberg. Beneath every word spoken, every decision made, and every action taken lies a critical component that fundamentally alters its karmic signature: intention. The why behind what you do determines not only the nature of the effect that returns to you, but also its quality, intensity, and evolutionary purpose. As we explore this crucial dimension of cause and effect, you will discover that mastering intention represents perhaps the most powerful leverage point in conscious reality creation. The 3 dimensions of action. To fully comprehend the role of intention in karmic mechanics, we must first understand that every human action operates simultaneously on 3 distinct levels. The external form. This represents the physically observable dimension of action, what can be seen, heard, or otherwise detected by the senses. It's the words spoken, the money donated, the help offered, the decision executed. This external form is what conventional morality and social evaluation typically focus upon exclusively. The energetic quality. Beyond the physical form lies the energetic signature of the action, its vibrational character, emotional tone, and the subtle frequencies it generates in the universal field. This dimension, while invisible to ordinary perception, constitutes a crucial component of the action's causal power. The underlying intention. At the deepest level resides the intention, the motivating why that initiates and shapes the entire action. This causal core represents the action's spiritual DNA, determining both its energetic quality and its karmic consequences. These 3 dimensions always operate as an integrated whole, with intention serving as the generative center from which the other dimensions emerge. Understanding this tripartite structure reveals why seemingly identical external actions can produce dramatically different karmic returns based on the intentions that animate them. The primacy of intention. In the Hermetic tradition, the principle that mental transmutation must be directed by will points to the primacy of intention in all creative processes. Your will, the directed intention behind your thoughts, words, and deeds, determines the fundamental trajectory of the energies you set in motion. Consider this illustrative example. 3 individuals each donate the same amount of money to the same charitable cause. Externally, these actions appear identical. Yet their karmic consequences differ profoundly based on the intentions behind them. The first person donates with the primary intention of being seen as generous, seeking social approval and enhanced reputation. The external action carries the energetic signature of ego gratification and validation seeking. The karmic return will involve circumstances that address their need for validation, potentially including experiences that challenge their dependence on external approval. The second person donates with the calculation that this contribution will create beneficial business connections or potential future advantages. Their action carries the energetic signature of transaction and strategic positioning. The karmic return will likely manifest as similarly transactional relationships and opportunities that mirror this conditional giving. The third person donates from genuine compassion and a desire to alleviate suffering, with no thought of personal benefit or recognition. This action carries the energetic signature of unconditional love and authentic service. The karmic return will reflect this pure intention, potentially manifesting as unexpected support, deep connection, or enhanced well-being that arrives through seemingly unrelated channels. Despite identical external forms, these three actions generate entirely different causal patterns in the universal field, based solely on the varying intentions behind them. This principle applies not just to charitable giving, but to every action you take. From the words you speak to the work you perform, to the relationships you cultivate. The four primary intentions. While human motivation encompasses infinite subtleties, most intentions can be categorized within four primary archetypes, each generating distinctive karmic patterns. Survival, security intentions. Actions motivated primarily by the need for physical safety, material security, or threat avoidance generate karmic patterns related to fundamental needs and basic stability. These intentions, while necessary at certain developmental stages, tend to create circular karmic patterns that repeatedly address the same survival concerns without facilitating higher evolution. Ego, identity intentions. Actions, motivated by the desire for recognition, status, validation, or identity reinforcement, create karmic patterns related to self-worth, social position, and external validation. These intentions often generate complex karmic entanglements involving others who mirror unresolved aspects of self-perception. Power control intentions. Actions motivated by the desire to influence, direct, or control circumstances, outcomes, or other people generate karmic patterns involving authority dynamics, autonomy issues, and lessons regarding the proper use of personal power. These intentions frequently create karmic returns that challenge the illusion of control. Service contribution intentions. Actions motivated by genuine desire to contribute, serve, or add value beyond personal benefit generate expansive karmic patterns that support both individual evolution and collective well-being. These intentions create the least restrictive karma, as they align most closely with universal principles of harmony and unity. Most human actions involve combinations of these intentional archetypes, with different proportions creating distinctive karmic signatures. Your evolution through the law of cause and effect typically involves a gradual shift from primarily survival-based and ego-based intentions toward increasing expression of service-oriented intentions. Conscious versus unconscious intentions. A critical distinction in understanding intentions' role in karma involves the difference between conscious and unconscious intentions. Your stated or recognized motivation for an action represents only the surface level of intention, the part accessible to conscious awareness. Beneath this often lie deeper, unconscious intentions that may significantly alter the action's karmic signature. For instance, someone might consciously intend to help a friend through a difficult time, genuinely believing their motivation is pure concern. However, an unconscious intention to feel superior, to create obligation, or to avoid facing their own issues might simultaneously operate beneath awareness. These mixed intentions create mixed karmic returns that often confuse those who consider only their conscious motivations. This layering of intentions explains why individuals who believe they are acting with pure motives sometimes encounter seemingly unwarranted negative consequences. The law of cause and effect responds to the total intentional field, both conscious and unconscious, rather than merely to the consciously recognized portion. Developing intention awareness therefore requires honest self-examination that penetrates beyond surface motivations to reveal the complete intentional matrix behind your actions. Questions like, what am I really seeking through this action? And how would I feel if I received no recognition or appreciation for this? Can help illuminate unconscious intentions that might otherwise remain hidden. The energetic signature of intention. From a metaphysical perspective, each intentional archetype generates a distinctive energetic signature that fundamentally alters the vibrational character of your actions. These signatures can be understood in terms of their frequency, coherence, and expansiveness. Survival security intentions generate dense, contracted energy fields characterized by low frequency and self-referential boundaries. These intentions create strong but limited causal forces that tend to manifest quickly but with restricted scope. Ego identity intentions produce fluctuating energy fields that oscillate between expansion and contraction based on external validation. These intentions create inconsistent causal patterns that generate unpredictable and often unsatisfying returns. Power control intentions create focused, penetrating energy fields with medium frequency and directional force. These intentions generate substantial causal momentum, but often encounter equal opposing forces that create conflict or resistance. Service contribution intentions establish high-frequency, coherent energy fields characterized by expansion and harmony with universal principles. These intentions create the most potent and friction-free causal patterns, generating returns that arrive through synchronicity rather than struggle. Your dominant intentional signature determines not just what returns to you through the law of cause and effect, but how it returns, whether through struggle or grace, scarcity or abundance, conflict or harmony. This explains why individuals operating primarily from service intentions often report experiencing flow states, where manifestation occurs with minimal resistance, while those operating from ego or control intentions frequently encounter obstacles despite equivalent effort. Intention and the acceleration of karma. One of the most significant aspects of intention in karmic mechanics involves its effect on manifestation timing. The universal field responds not just to the content of your intentions, but to their clarity and coherence, adjusting the speed of karmic returns accordingly. Clear, singular intentions, those unmarred by internal contradiction or unconscious counterforces, tend to manifest with remarkable speed. This principle explains why genuine masters in spiritual traditions demonstrate seemingly miraculous manifestation abilities. Their intentions have achieved a purity and coherence that eliminate the usual delays in karmic return. Conversely, mixed or conflicted intentions, those containing contradictory desires or unconscious sabotage patterns, typically manifest slowly or not at all, as the opposing intentional forces effectively neutralize each other in the universal field. Most manifestation frustration stems not from lack of effort, but from unrecognized intentional conflicts that cancel out otherwise powerful creative energies. This understanding reveals why intention clarification represents such a powerful practice for conscious creators. By identifying and resolving contradictory intentions, you remove the primary obstacles to swift manifestation, allowing the law of cause and effect to operate with maximum efficiency in your experience. Purifying intention. The alchemical process. The process of intention clarification might be likened to alchemical purification, through which base metals were traditionally transformed into gold. In this context, your mixed, unconscious, or ego-based intentions represent the base metals, requiring transmutation into the gold of clear, conscious, service-oriented intention. This alchemical process involves several essential phases. Intention. Awareness. The initial phase requires developing heightened consciousness of your actual motivations rather than your assumed or socially acceptable ones. This honest self-examination often reveals surprising mixtures of noble and self-serving intentions behind even your most apparently selfless actions. Intention. Acceptance. Rather than judging or denying the less elevated aspects of your motivations, this phase involves fully acknowledging their presence without self-condemnation. This acceptance paradoxically creates the space necessary for intentional transformation. Intention refinement. With awareness and acceptance established, you can begin consciously refining your intentions by reinforcing their highest aspects while releasing their limiting components. This might involve asking, how can I approach this action from a place of genuine service while still honoring my legitimate needs? Intention. Integration. The final phase involves embodying your refined intentions so completely that they become your natural operating system rather than effortful constructs. At this stage, purified intention flows spontaneously rather than requiring constant conscious manipulation. This purification process doesn't demand perfect intentions, an unrealistic standard for embodied consciousness, but rather increasingly coherent and conscious ones. Each step toward greater intentional clarity accelerates your manifestation capacity while generating more harmonious karmic returns. The meta-intention. Evolutionary purpose. Beyond specific intentions for individual actions lies what might be called your meta-intention, the overarching purpose that guides your entire life trajectory. This meta-intention operates as a powerful karmic focusing lens, aligning seemingly discrete actions toward a unified evolutionary purpose. Traditional wisdom teachings identify three primary meta-intentions that create distinctly different life patterns. Experiential meta-intention. This orientation seeks maximum diversity of experience and sensation, viewing life primarily as an opportunity for varied engagement with material existence. This meta-intention generates karma that provides rich experiential learning, often through dramatic contrasts and intense circumstances. Mastery. Meta-intention. This orientation pursues excellence and complete understanding within specific domains, viewing life as an opportunity for skill development and knowledge acquisition. This meta-intention creates karma that offers deepening expertise through persistent challenges that stretch capacity. Transcendent meta-intention. This orientation seeks conscious evolution beyond identification with separate selfhood, viewing life as an opportunity for spiritual awakening. This meta-intention generates karma specifically designed to illuminate the limitations of ego identification while revealing the nature of ultimate reality. Your dominant meta-intention shapes your entire karmic pattern, attracting circumstances and relationships that serve your soul's primary evolutionary focus. Understanding this broader intentional context helps make sense of seemingly random life events by revealing their coherence within your larger developmental trajectory. Collective intentions and shared karma. While we focus primarily on individual intention, it's important to recognize that collective intentions, those shared by families, organizations, communities, or entire cultures, create powerful shared karmic patterns that influence everyone within their field, regardless of individual intentions. When you participate in any collective, from intimate relationship to global society, you enter its intentional field and become subject to its karmic patterns to the degree that you energetically align with its dominant intentions. This explains why individuals sometimes encounter circumstances that don't seem connected to their personal causation. They're experiencing the effects of collective intention fields in which they participate. This understanding has significant implications for conscious creators, highlighting the importance of carefully selecting the collective intention fields you engage with. Organizations, communities, and relationships built around service-oriented intentions generate vastly different karmic patterns than those constructed on ego or control motivations, regardless of their external activities. Practical intention setting. Techniques. Translating these principles into practice involves developing systematic approaches to intention clarification and alignment. Consider implementing these proven techniques. Morning intention setting. Begin each day by consciously establishing your core intentions for the hours ahead. Rather than focusing exclusively on what you intend to do, emphasize how and why you intend to do it, clarifying the quality of consciousness you choose to bring to your activities. Intention. Journaling. Regularly document your recognized intentions, especially before significant decisions or actions. This writing process often reveals unconscious motivations that might otherwise remain hidden, allowing conscious refinement before energy is invested in action. Intention. Meditation. Develop a contemplative practice specifically focused on clarifying intention. This might involve sitting quietly and asking, "What is my truest intention in this situation?" Then allowing deeper wisdom to emerge without analytical interference. Intention triangulation. When uncertain about your actual motivations, consult trusted others who demonstrate clear perception and genuine care for your evolution. Their external perspective often illuminates unconscious intentions invisible from your vantage point. Intention alignment. Check. Before important actions, verify alignment between your specific intention and your broader life purpose by asking, "Does this intention serve my highest evolutionary development and the well-being of all concerned?" This simple question often reveals misalignments requiring adjustment. Intention upgrade practice. When you notice yourself operating from survival, ego, or control intentions, consciously upgrade to service orientation by asking, "How can I approach this same situation from the perspective of contribution rather than acquisition or protection?" Intention review process. At day's end, review your actions and their motivating intentions, noting where you maintained alignment with your highest purpose and where unconscious or limited intentions may have directed your energy. This regular review accelerates intentional development. Intention and divine will. The most profound teachings on intention suggest that the ultimate purpose of intention refinement is not to perfect personal will, but to align individual intention with what various traditions call divine will, universal intelligence, or the Tao. From this perspective, the highest intention is surrender to the evolutionary intelligence that operates through all existence. This surrender doesn't imply passivity or fatalism, but rather recognition that the separate self, with its limited perception and understanding, makes a poor primary decision maker compared to the infinite intelligence of the whole. As your intentions increasingly align with this universal wisdom, you experience what mystics describe as effortless accomplishment, manifestation that occurs not through personal striving, but through conscious cooperation with cosmic principles. The paradox here is that by surrendering personal intention to universal intention, you actually gain greater manifestation power than through even the most determined individual will. This explains why many spiritual masters emphasize that the culmination of intentional development is not perfect personal intention, but perfect alignment with the intention already operating through the cosmos itself. The transformative power of intentional living. As you develop increasingly conscious and refined intentions, you'll notice profound shifts in both your internal experience and external circumstances. These transformations typically unfold in a recognizable sequence. Initially, you'll experience greater internal coherence as contradictory intentions resolve into more unified purpose. This coherence manifests as reduced inner conflict, clearer decision-making, and enhanced energy availability. Next, you'll notice accelerated manifestation as your clarified intentions encounter less internal resistance in the universal field. Synchronicities increase, resources appear with unusual timing, and opportunities align more perfectly with your authentic goals. Eventually, you'll experience what might be called intentional grace, a state where conscious intention setting becomes less necessary because your entire being has aligned with universal purpose. At this stage, right action flows naturally without the need for continual intentional direction. This progression represents not just personal development, but participation in the cosmic purpose of existence itself, the universe becoming consciously aware of its own creative nature through individualized expressions like yourself. In the next chapter, we'll explore how understanding karmic responsibility, taking full ownership of your creative role, liberates you from victimhood while empowering conscious participation in the unfolding of your life circumstances. Chapter 6. Karmic responsibility, embracing accountability without victimhood. Understanding the role of your thoughts, emotions, intentions, and actions in creating your life experience leads inevitably to a profound question. How do you embrace full responsibility for your circumstances without falling into self-blame, guilt, or an oversimplified view of complex life situations? This chapter explores the critical distinction between karmic responsibility and victimhood, revealing how conscious accountability becomes not a burden, but the very key to your liberation and empowerment. The responsibility paradox. In the realm of karmic understanding, a fascinating paradox emerges. Those who accept complete responsibility for their life circumstances experience the greatest freedom, while those who attribute their conditions to external causes remain perpetually bound by those very circumstances. This paradox reveals a fundamental truth about consciousness and creation, that responsibility and creative power are inseparable aspects of the same principle. The etymology of the word responsibility provides valuable insight here. Derived from the Latin respondere, to respond, responsibility literally means the ability to respond. This definition highlights that true responsibility has nothing to do with blame, guilt, or self-recrimination, but rather concerns your capacity to respond consciously to life conditions rather than react unconsciously to them. When you embrace karmic responsibility, you are not declaring, "It's all my fault," but rather, "This is all my creation." A profoundly different orientation that replaces judgment with creative awareness. This shift transforms you from a passive recipient of seemingly random circumstances into a conscious participant in your ongoing life creation. Responsibility versus blame. The critical distinction. Perhaps the most common misunderstanding regarding karmic responsibility involves conflating it with blame. This confusion creates significant resistance to accepting responsibility, as blame carries heavy emotional and moral connotations that responsibility does not inherently contain. Blame operates from a framework of judgment, implying wrongdoing, error, or moral failure. It focuses on the past, assigning fault for what has already occurred, and typically generates emotions like shame, guilt, or defensiveness that diminish rather than enhance creative capacity. Responsibility, properly understood, operates from a framework of creation, recognizing causal relationships without moral judgment. It focuses primarily on the present moment and future possibilities, acknowledging past patterns not to assign fault, but to illuminate the path forward. Rather than generating debilitating emotions, true responsibility evokes empowerment, clarity, and creative engagement. Consider how these different orientations might approach the same circumstance. A blame orientation toward financial difficulties might produce thoughts like, "I've made terrible decisions. I'm irresponsible with money. I deserve these problems." A responsibility orientation toward the same situation would generate an entirely different internal dialogue. "I created these circumstances through specific thought patterns, beliefs, and choices regarding abundance. By identifying and transforming these patterns, I can create different financial experiences." Notice that the responsibility perspective doesn't deny causality. It fully acknowledges the connection between past choices and present circumstances. However, it holds this connection in a context of ongoing creation rather than finalized judgment, maintaining the creator stance rather than defaulting to the victim position. The architecture of victimhood. If responsibility represents alignment with your creative nature, victimhood represents its opposite. The perception that your circumstances occur independently of your creative participation and must therefore be endured, resisted, or escaped rather than transformed through conscious causation. The victim perception operates through several characteristic thought patterns. External causation. The fundamental premise of victimhood is that your circumstances are primarily caused by forces outside yourself, other people's actions, systemic conditions, random events, or fated bad luck. This perception inevitably diminishes your sense of creative agency. Powerlessness. Building on the external causation belief, victimhood generates a pervasive sense of helplessness to change unwanted conditions, since their perceived causes lie beyond your control. This perceived powerlessness often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy through the law of attraction. Justifiable negativity. The victim position considers negative emotions like resentment, blame, and self-pity not merely understandable, but justified responses to unfair circumstances. These emotions are then protected rather than transformed, creating energetic patterns that perpetuate similar experiences. Conditional happiness. From the victim stance, improved emotional states appear dependent on changed external circumstances rather than internally generated. This creates a happiness contingency that places your well-being at the mercy of conditions you perceive as beyond your control. These interrelated perceptions create a closed loop that continuously validates itself through selective attention to confirming evidence while dismissing information that would suggest your creative involvement in the circumstances you experience. The karmic consequences of victimhood. From the perspective of universal law, the victim stance produces specific karmic consequences, regardless of whether it appears justified by objective circumstances. These consequences emerge not as punishment, but as the natural manifestation of the energetic patterns generated by victimhood. Repetitive patterns. When you perceive yourself as the victim of particular circumstances, you emit vibrational signals that activate similar potentials in your environment, creating recurring variations of the same basic experience. This repetition continues until the victim perception itself transforms. Intensification. Unacknowledged karmic patterns typically escalate in intensity over time, creating increasingly dramatic versions of the core pattern until conscious recognition occurs. This explains why those firmly established in victimhood often report that their problems continually worsen despite their best efforts to escape them. Diminished manifestation capacity. The victim stance dramatically restricts your ability to consciously create desired experiences, as it directs your creative energy toward resisting and blaming rather than toward generating preferred alternatives. This limitation persists regardless of how many manifestation techniques you might apply. Relationship complications. Victim consciousness invariably attracts complementary persecutor and rescuer energies, creating triangulated relationship dynamics characterized by blame, dependency, and power struggles. These triangulations appear across all life domains until the underlying victim pattern resolves. Understanding these consequences reveals why embracing karmic responsibility, even for circumstances that appear utterly imposed from without, represents not moral obligation, but practical necessity for anyone seeking to transform their life experience through conscious creation. Responsibility in complex circumstances. One of the most challenging aspects of karmic responsibility involves applying its principles to complex, difficult, or seemingly unjust circumstances. How can responsibility be meaningfully embraced in situations of structural inequality, physical limitation, or genuine victimization through others' harmful actions? This question requires nuanced understanding rather than simplistic responses that either deny genuine challenges or use them to justify ongoing victimhood. Several key distinctions help navigate this complexity. Factual versus perceptual responsibility. A critical differentiation exists between the factual circumstances of your experience and your perceptual relationship to those circumstances. While you may not have factually caused certain challenging conditions, you maintain complete responsibility for your perceptual relationship to them, the meanings you assign, the emotions you generate, and the responses you choose. Collective versus individual causation. Many life circumstances reflect collective rather than purely individual karmic patterns. Recognizing your participation in collective fields, family systems, cultural structures, historical patterns, expands understanding beyond simplistic personal blame, while still maintaining your responsibility as a contributing member of these collectives. Opportunity within constraint. Even in genuinely constrained circumstances, unlimited creative opportunities exist regarding your internal responses and the meanings you generate. Responsibility in challenging conditions involves maximizing creative response within whatever parameters actually exist, rather than focusing on limitations. Multi-lifetime perspective. From the broader understanding found in many wisdom traditions, current life circumstances may reflect karmic patterns extending beyond this single lifetime. This perspective doesn't promote passive acceptance, but rather encourages recognizing the deeper evolutionary purposes potentially served by challenging circumstances. These distinctions allow embracing responsibility as a creative stance even in objectively difficult situations, focusing not on self-blame for the conditions themselves, but on your power to respond consciously within and through these conditions. The stages of karmic responsibility. Developing full karmic responsibility typically unfolds through distinctive stages, each representing increased consciousness and diminished victim perception. Stage 1. Unconscious victimhood. At this initial stage, you perceive yourself as largely subject to external forces, with minimal recognition of your creative role in generating your circumstances. Life appears to happen to you rather than through you, with your responses limited primarily to coping with or resisting conditions you didn't choose. This perception might express through statements like, "This always happens to me," "I never get what I want," or "Everything was fine until they ruined it." Such language reveals the fundamental victim orientation that attributes primary causation to external factors while minimizing personal creative power. Stage 2. Reactive responsibility. As awareness begins developing, you recognize connections between specific actions you've taken and results you've experienced, but primarily in reactive, isolated instances rather than as expressions of consistent creative patterns. Responsibility remains largely event-based rather than encompassing your overall life design. At this stage, you might acknowledge, "I can see how my decision led to this outcome," or "I played a part in creating this situation." However, this recognition typically extends only to obvious action-reaction sequences rather than to subtler thought-emotion patterns or unconscious intentions. Stage 3. Pattern recognition. With continued development, you begin perceiving recurring patterns in your experience and connecting them to consistent thought forms, emotional habits, and belief systems operating beneath your conscious awareness. Responsibility expands beyond isolated actions to include the mental and emotional templates generating your overall life patterns. This deeper recognition might express as, "I see how my fear of abandonment has created similar relationship dynamics throughout my life," or "My financial limitations reflect my underlying beliefs about money and worth." This pattern awareness represents a significant shift from event-based to systemic understanding of your creative role. Stage 4. Conscious creatorship. The mature stage of karmic responsibility involves fully embracing your role as the primary creator of your life experience, neither denying genuine challenges nor using them to justify victim positioning. This level recognizes that while external conditions influence your experience, your consciousness determines how these influences manifest in your personal reality. From this position, you might reflect, "I recognize how I've attracted these circumstances as opportunities for growth and consciousness expansion." Or, "I take full responsibility not for controlling external events, but for my creative relationship to whatever arises." This stance maintains creative empowerment regardless of apparent external constraints. Stage 5. Transcendent responsibility. The most advanced understanding transcends the very distinction between self and other, recognizing all experience as expressions of the unified consciousness in which you participate. At this level, responsibility becomes not personal but universal, embracing all manifestation as part of the cosmic creative process, expressing through individualized awareness. This transcendent perspective might be expressed, "All that arises is the perfect expression of universal intelligence unfolding through this particular point of awareness," or "There is no separate self to be either victim or creator, only the one consciousness experiencing itself in infinite variation." Right, while few maintain this transcendent awareness continuously, glimpsing this perspective reveals the ultimate resolution of the responsibility question in the recognition of universal, rather than merely personal creative agency. Practical implementation, living responsibility. Embracing karmic responsibility represents not merely philosophical understanding, but practical life orientation. The following approaches facilitate implementing responsibility consciousness in daily experience. Language transformation. Begin monitoring and deliberately altering your verbal and internal language patterns, replacing victim-oriented expressions. This happened to me. They made me feel. With creator-oriented alternatives, I created this experience. I generated this feeling in response to. This linguistic shift may seem subtle, but profoundly alters your relationship to experience by continually reinforcing your creative role rather than passive recipient status. After initial conscious effort, this transformed language gradually becomes your natural expression of a shifted perspective. The responsibility question. When facing challenging circumstances, consistently ask, how have I created or contributed to this situation, and what message or opportunity does it contain? Ask this, not with self-recrimination, but with genuine curiosity about your creative patterns. This inquiry redirects attention from blame, of self or others, to the creative mechanisms operating through your consciousness. The answers that emerge reveal not fault, but the specific patterns requiring transformation to create different experiences. Trigger recognition. Develop increasing awareness of situations, individuals, or circumstances that consistently trigger victim responses in you. These triggers invariably point to unresolved aspects of consciousness seeking integration through the circumstances that activate them. Rather than avoiding triggers or blaming them for your responses, view each triggered reaction as valuable feedback, revealing where responsibility remains underdeveloped. Each trigger thus becomes an opportunity for expanded consciousness rather than justification for diminished responsibility. The gift perspective. Practice consciously identifying the potential evolutionary gifts contained within challenging circumstances, asking, how might this situation serve my development or reflect exactly what I need for my next stage of growth? This perspective transforms apparent obstacles into recognized opportunities by highlighting their potential developmental purposes. Without denying difficulties, it maintains the creator stance by focusing on the value that can be extracted from any experience. Responsibility. Without shame, cultivate the capacity to acknowledge your creative role in difficult circumstances without activating shame, guilt, or self-punishment. This critical distinction allows maintaining responsibility without the emotional contraction that would otherwise diminish your creative power. When you notice self-blame arising, remind yourself, I created this through unconscious patterns, not deliberate harmful intent. Understanding these patterns empowers transformation rather than justifying judgment. Future creation focus. While acknowledging how past patterns have created current circumstances, maintain primary focus on the future experiences you now choose to create rather than dwelling on the conditions already manifested. This forward orientation prevents responsibility from becoming mere analysis of past creation and redirects creative energy toward preferred manifestations. Ask not just, how did I create this, but more importantly, what do I choose to create next, and how? The social dimension of karmic responsibility. While personal responsibility forms the foundation of karmic understanding, a complete perspective recognizes that you exist within social systems and collective fields that both influence and are influenced by your individual consciousness. This social dimension requires balancing personal responsibility with recognition of shared creative patterns. Several principles facilitate this balanced understanding. Systems participation. You participate in numerous systems, family, cultural, economic, political, that operate according to collective rather than merely individual karmic patterns. Full responsibility includes recognizing your participation in these collective fields without using them to deny your creative agency within them. Influence without control. Within collective systems, you maintain significant creative influence without absolute control. Responsibility in this context means fully exercising your creative capacity within systems you cannot single-handedly transform, focusing on your zone of influence rather than lamenting your lack of total control. Conscious disengagement. Sometimes responsibility involves consciously withdrawing participation or support from collective fields that fundamentally contradict your values or evolutionary direction. This disengagement itself represents a powerful creative act with significant karmic implications. Sphere of responsibility. Mature karmic understanding distinguishes between your legitimate sphere of responsibility and areas properly belonging to others' creative agency. Attempting to assume responsibility beyond your appropriate sphere often reflects disguised control patterns rather than genuine responsibility. These principles allow maintaining personal responsibility without either denying systemic realities or using them as justification for victim positioning. The mature stance recognizes both individual and collective dimensions of creation while maintaining your creative empowerment regardless of external conditions. Beyond responsibility, karmic compassion. The highest expression of karmic responsibility ultimately transcends mere accountability and opens into profound compassion for yourself and for all beings engaged in the evolutionary journey through cause and effect. This compassionate perspective recognizes that all souls are moving through their unique developmental sequences, creating exactly the experiences necessary for their growth. From this viewpoint, judgment becomes impossible, as every circumstance, even those appearing most destructive or limiting, serves the precise evolutionary purpose required by the consciousness experiencing it. This doesn't justify harmful actions, but contextualizes them within the broader understanding that each being creates according to their current level of awareness. This compassionate perspective allows holding complete responsibility without the heaviness often associated with it. You recognize your creative role, not with judgment, but with appreciation for the perfect intelligence operating through even your most challenging creations. Each circumstance, regardless of its apparent desirability, has served exactly the evolutionary purpose required at that stage of your development. As Hermetic philosophy teaches, every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. When this principle is fully embraced, responsibility transforms from burden to liberation, revealing your inseparable unity with the creative intelligence of the universe itself. In the next chapter, we will explore how to apply this understanding of karmic responsibility to consciously create preferred experiences through deliberate rather than unconscious participation in the law of cause and effect. Chapter 7. Conscious Creation. Proactively using cause and effect for positive outcomes. Having explored the mechanics of karma, the role of intention, the importance of breaking negative cycles, and the liberating power of responsibility, we now arrive at the culmination of this knowledge, conscious creation. This chapter addresses the essential question: how can you deliberately apply your understanding of the law of cause and effect to proactively generate the experiences you desire rather than reactively responding to circumstances that appear to happen to you? The transition from unconscious to conscious creation. Every human being creates their reality. This is not optional, but an inherent function of consciousness interacting with the universal field. The only choice is whether this creation occurs unconsciously, through default patterns operating below awareness, or consciously, through deliberate participation in the creative process. This fundamental distinction represents the difference between living at the effect of karmic patterns and living as their conscious cause. Unconscious creation resembles sleepwalking through a powerful creative process. Without awareness of how your thoughts, emotions, intentions, and actions generate your experience, you continue creating but do so according to habitual patterns established through past conditioning rather than present choice. This unconscious creation typically produces recycled experiences, variations on familiar themes, rather than genuinely new possibilities. Conscious creation, by contrast, involves awakening within the creative process and assuming deliberate directorship of your creative faculties. Rather than allowing subconscious programming to determine your vibrational emissions, you intentionally align these emissions with your chosen experiences, effectively ordering from the cosmic catalogue with clarity and purpose, rather than with confusion and contradiction. This transition from unconscious to conscious creation represents perhaps the most significant evolutionary leap available to human consciousness. The shift from creature of circumstance to creator of circumstance, from karmic consequence to karmic cause, from passenger in your life journey to its navigator and captain. The creation formula. The 4 elements of manifestation. Conscious creation operates through consistent application of what might be called the creation formula, a systematic approach to generating desired experiences through 4 essential elements working in precise alignment. Clarity. The first requirement for effective creation is absolute clarity regarding what you actually desire to experience. This clarity must extend beyond vague preferences or general improvements to specific, detailed vision of the experience you choose to create. Clarity acts as the blueprinting function in the creative process, establishing the precise parameters for manifestation. Most creation attempts fail not through lack of effort, but through lack of clarity, as the universal field cannot manifest conflicted or ambiguous instructions. When you say, "I want financial abundance," while simultaneously vibrating with beliefs about money's corrupting influence or fears about wealth's responsibilities, these contradictions create fuzzy manifestation instructions that produce similarly fuzzy results. Coherence. The second element requires establishing coherence between your various levels of causation, ensuring that your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, words, and actions all align with your stated desire rather than contradicting it. This coherence creates a unified causal field rather than scattered, conflicting signals. Consider someone desiring vibrant health while maintaining negative body beliefs, engaging in self-criticism, speaking about their health problems, and making lifestyle choices that undermine well-being. Despite genuine conscious desire for health, these incoherent patterns create contradictory causes that neutralize each other in the manifestation process. Concentration. The third requirement involves focusing sufficient creative energy on your chosen creation to reach manifestation threshold. This concentration develops through consistent attention, emotional investment, and persistent return to your creative vision, despite apparent delays or contradictory evidence. Many potentially powerful creations dissolve before manifestation simply because insufficient creative energy was concentrated upon them. Like seeds that receive initial planting, but inadequate subsequent nurturing, these intentions begin the manifestation process, but lack the sustained energy required for complete expression in physical experience. Conviction. The final element demands unshakable conviction that what you have clearly envisioned and coherently aligned with is, in essence, already created in the non-physical dimension, and now moves inevitably toward physical expression through the law of cause and effect. This conviction transcends mere positive thinking or wishful hoping, establishing instead what esoteric traditions call faith, the absolute knowing that the unseen causal realm already contains the completed creation that now unfolds into visibility through divine timing. This conviction provides the magnetic force that draws potential into actuality. When these 4 elements, clarity, coherence, concentration, and conviction, operate in perfect alignment, conscious creation becomes not merely possible, but inevitable, as you have effectively fulfilled all requirements for the law of cause and effect to deliver your creation into tangible experience. The creation sequence, form, and timing. While the creation formula establishes what is required for manifestation, the creation sequence addresses how the process unfolds temporally. Understanding this sequence prevents the common frustration that occurs when creators expect results before the necessary stages have completed. In the Hermetic tradition, the principle that creation proceeds from the mental to the physical reveals the invariable sequence through which all manifestation occurs. Mental creation. Every experience begins as pure thought form, a mental template that establishes the essential pattern for what will eventually manifest physically. This initial stage occurs instantly, as thought requires no time for formation, but remains invisible except to developed spiritual perception. Emotional activation. The mental template receives its activation through emotional energy, which charges the thought form with manifesting power. Emotion provides the fuel that propels the mental creation toward physical expression, with different emotional qualities creating different manifestation trajectories. Etheric formation. Before appearing physically, the creation organizes in what esoteric traditions call the etheric plane, the subtle template level that precedes physical manifestation. In this stage, the energetic structure forms completely while remaining largely invisible to ordinary perception. Physical manifestation. Only after passing through these prior stages does the creation finally precipitate into physical experience, appearing to conventional perception as a new circumstance, opportunity, relationship, or condition that seems to arrive from outside, although actually completing a sequence initiated from within. This sequence explains why conscious creation involves what might be called pre-visible creation phases, during which you must maintain clarity, coherence, concentration, and conviction despite no tangible evidence of movement toward your desire. The most testing period in any manifestation process occurs during these invisible phases, when only your commitment to the complete sequence sustains the creation's momentum. Understanding this sequence transforms periods of apparent non-manifestation from frustrating delays into recognized creation phases, requiring specific consciousness practices rather than doubt or abandonment. Just as a farmer doesn't dig up seeds daily to check their progress, but trusts the invisible germination process, while continuing appropriate nurturing actions, the conscious creator maintains faith in the unseen development phases while providing continued clear creative direction. The preparation phase. Creating fertile ground. Before applying the creation formula to specific desires, conscious creators establish what might be called manifestation readiness, the internal and external conditions that support effective creation. This preparation involves several key elements. Energy clearing. Since all creation occurs within your current energetic field, clearing this field of contradictory patterns, limiting beliefs, and emotional interference creates space for new manifestations. This clearing might involve practices like meditation, energy healing, emotional release work, or belief reconfiguration. Vibrational baseline. Conscious creators recognize the importance of their prevailing vibrational state, the emotional and mental frequency they consistently maintain. Elevating this baseline through appreciation practices, joy amplification, and deliberate positivity creates a fertile field for preferred manifestations. Pattern interruption. As explored in Chapter 4, interrupting negative karmic cycles that may be operating counterproductive causal sequences creates space for new creative patterns. This interruption often requires identifying and transforming core limiting beliefs that have generated unwanted recurring experiences. Environmental alignment. Your physical environment both reflects and influences your creative capacity. Conscious creators deliberately structure their living and working spaces to support rather than contradict their manifestation intentions, recognizing that environment constantly communicates subtle creation instructions to the subconscious mind. Relationship curation. The people with whom you regularly interact create a powerful collective field that either amplifies or diminishes your creative capacity. Conscious creators intentionally cultivate relationships that support expanded possibility while minimizing exposure to energy-draining or limitation-reinforcing connections. These preparation elements establish what might be called your creation platform, the foundation from which specific manifestations can effectively launch. While often overlooked in favor of specific techniques, this preparation phase actually determines 80% of your manifestation success, as it addresses the field conditions required for effective creation rather than merely the methods applied within that field. The conscious creation methodology. With the creation formula understood and preparation complete, you can apply specific methodology to manifest particular experiences through the law of cause and effect. This systematic approach involves 7 key practices. Vision crystallization. Begin by developing absolute clarity regarding your desired creation, not as vague improvement, but as specific experience. This crystallization should engage all senses, creating a virtual reality so detailed and vivid that your subconscious mind accepts it as genuine experience rather than mere fantasy. Effective vision crystallization answers questions like, how exactly will this look and feel? Who else is involved? What specific conditions exist? What am I experiencing emotionally, mentally, and physically within this creation? The more precisely these questions are answered, the clearer the blueprint provided to the universal field. Alignment. Analysis. Honestly assess your current alignment with this vision across all levels of your being. Do your beliefs fully support its possibility? Do your emotions resonate with its essence? Do your words affirm its reality? Do your actions demonstrate commitment to its manifestation? Identifying misalignments at any level reveals specific areas requiring coherence development. Vibrational matching. Perhaps the most powerful creation practice involves deliberately generating the emotional and mental states that would exist if your desired manifestation were already present in your experience. This acting as if approach creates vibrational resonance that activates corresponding potentials in the universal field. Rather than waiting to feel abundant after money arrives, successful creators generate abundant feeling states first, recognizing that the vibration precedes rather than follows the manifestation. This vibrational matching literally tunes your consciousness to the frequency at which your desire exists, allowing you to receive it through resonance. Symbolic initiation. Ancient wisdom recognized the power of symbolic action to communicate creation instructions to both the subconscious mind and the universal field. By performing physical actions that represent your desired manifestation, you create powerful causal signals that accelerate the manifestation sequence. These symbolic acts might include creating vision boards, performing ceremonial representations of your desire, physically modifying your environment to accommodate the coming manifestation, or taking initial actions that demonstrate commitment to your vision. Such symbols bypass conscious resistance while activating deep creative capacities. Incubation maintenance. During the invisible phases of the manifestation sequence, conscious creators maintain specific practices that sustain creation momentum despite apparent lack of progress. These incubation practices might include daily visualization, verbal affirmation, gratitude expression for the coming manifestation, or emotional rehearsal of the completed creation. The essential quality during incubation involves maintaining unwavering faith in the completion of the full manifestation sequence, recognizing that doubt during these critical phases can significantly delay or completely derail the creation process. This maintenance creates the consistent energy supply required for full manifestation. Inspired action. While creative visualization, emotional alignment, and symbolic representation establish the energetic foundation for manifestation, physical action provides the final crystallization pathway through which non-physical potential becomes physical actuality. However, not all action equally serves the manifestation process. Conscious creators distinguish between forced action motivated by anxiety or doubt, and inspired action arising from intuitive guidance aligned with the creation sequence. The former often creates resistance and burnout, while the latter provides effortless pathways through which manifestation completes its journey into physical experience. Receptive allowing. The final phase of conscious creation involves developing receptivity to your manifestation, arriving through unexpected channels, timing, or forms that may differ from your original conception, while delivering the essential experience you desire. This allowing quality prevents the rigid expectations that often delay or block completed manifestations. Successful creators maintain clarity about the core experience they desire, while remaining flexible regarding the specific pathways through which that experience manifests. This balanced approach of directed intention and open receptivity creates the optimal conditions for the universe to deliver your creation through the paths of least resistance. The 3 creation modalities. Different types of manifestation require different approaches to the creation process. Conscious creators recognize 3 distinct manifestation modalities, each with its own requirements and characteristics. Direct manifestation. This modality involves creating specific conditions or experiences through pure consciousness without significant physical action sequences. Examples include manifesting parking spaces, unexpected financial windfalls, or spontaneous relationship connections. Direct manifestation operates primarily through the vibrational resonance between your consciousness and specific potentials in the universal field, activating these potentials without extensive physical causation chains. This modality demonstrates the immediate creative power of consciousness when unimpeded by contradictory programming. Co-creative manifestation. This common modality involves conscious partnership between your creative intention and universal intelligence, with you providing the what while allowing universal wisdom to determine the how of manifestation. Examples include career opportunities, relationship developments, or health improvements. Co-creative manifestation requires clear intention combined with surrendered attachment to specific pathways, allowing higher intelligence to orchestrate the most effective manifestation routes. This modality balances directed creation with trust in universal wisdom beyond personal perspective. Progressive manifestation. This modality involves extended creation sequences that unfold through multiple stages and decision points, creating not instant results, but progressive movement toward comprehensive manifestations. Examples include major life transitions, significant achievements, or substantial transformations. Progressive manifestation requires sustained creative direction, combined with continuous adjustment based on feedback received during the creation journey. Rather than single-point creation, this modality establishes creation trajectories that develop through ongoing co-creative partnership. Recognizing which modality applies to your specific desired creation prevents the common frustration of applying inappropriate approaches, such as expecting instant results for inherently progressive manifestations or attempting excessive control within naturally co-creative processes. Navigating creation challenges. Even with perfect application of creation principles, challenges inevitably arise during the manifestation process. Conscious creators develop specific strategies for navigating these common obstacles. Conflicting intentions. When progress stalls despite apparent alignment with your desire, examine whether you hold conflicting intentions at unconscious levels. These might include secondary benefits from current conditions, hidden fears about what your manifestation might require, or unconscious loyalty to limitation-based identities. Resolving these conflicts might involve journaling dialogues between conflicting aspects, consulting trusted intuitive guides who can illuminate unconscious material, or using techniques like muscle testing to identify subconscious programming that contradicts conscious desire. Manifestation. Timing. Some creations require specific timing alignment with external conditions, relationship readiness, or your own developmental sequence. When manifestation appears delayed despite proper application of creation principles, consider whether divine timing rather than creation error explains the apparent delay. Rather than forcing untimely manifestation through anxious effort, conscious creators use perceived delays to deepen preparation, strengthen alignment, and develop the specific capacities that will be required when manifestation completes. This perspective transforms waiting from frustrated impatience to purposeful development. Attachment release. Paradoxically, excessive attachment to specific outcomes often creates the very resistance that prevents their manifestation. This attachment generates fear-based monitoring of progress, desperate over-effort, and contracted energy that repels rather than attracts desired experiences. The antidote involves what Eastern traditions call detached desire, maintaining clear intention while releasing desperate grasping for particular outcomes. This detachment doesn't diminish creative power, but actually enhances it by removing the constricted energy patterns that block natural manifestation flow. Feedback integration. The universe continuously provides feedback about your creation process through partial manifestations, synchronistic messages, intuitive impressions, and recurring themes in your experience. Conscious creators develop refined perception of this feedback, using it to adjust their approach rather than abandoning their creations when challenges arise. This feedback often reveals specific alignments requiring attention, beliefs needing transformation, or inspired actions awaiting implementation. By viewing all experience as valuable creation feedback rather than as success or failure indicators, you maintain the learning orientation that characterizes mature creators. Faith renewal. During extended creation sequences, periods naturally arise when faith in the process diminishes and doubt regarding manifestation capacity increases. Rather than allowing these doubt phases to derail creation, conscious creators implement specific faith renewal practices at the first sign of waning confidence. These might include reviewing past successful manifestations, connecting with supportive creation communities, engaging in spiritual practices that strengthen universal connection, or temporarily focusing on smaller manifestations that rebuild creation confidence through quick, visible results. Creation ethics, the responsible use of cause and effect. As your manifestation capacity develops through conscious application of these principles, questions naturally arise regarding the ethical dimensions of deliberate creation. What limitations, if any, exist regarding what you should create? What responsibilities accompany your growing creative power? While different wisdom traditions offer varying perspectives on these questions, several principles appear consistently across ethical creation frameworks. Harmonic creation. Mature creators recognize that the most effective and frictionless manifestations occur when your creations harmonize with rather than oppose the well-being of others and the larger systems in which you participate. This doesn't prohibit creating what others might disagree with, but suggests focusing on creations that expand rather than diminish collective well-being. Sovereignty. Respect. Ethical creation involves absolute respect for others' creative sovereignty, focusing your manifestation power on your own experience rather than attempting to control or manipulate others' choices. While your creations inevitably affect others, directing your creative intention toward controlling specific others' decisions crosses an important ethical boundary. Evolutionary alignment. The most powerful and fulfilling creations align with your authentic evolutionary path, rather than with ego-based desires for validation, comparison advantages, or collection of experiences without growth purpose. This alignment doesn't preclude creating material abundance or pleasurable experiences, but contextualizes them within your broader development. Creation responsibility. As explored in Chapter 6, ethical creation involves assuming full responsibility for both intended and unintended consequences of your manifestations, recognizing that the law of cause and effect operates regardless of your awareness or intention. This responsibility includes making appropriate corrections when your creations produce harmful effects you didn't anticipate. Stewardship. Orientation. Mature creators recognize their creative power as a sacred capacity held in stewardship rather than as personal property to be used for purely self-centered purposes. This orientation naturally guides creation towards service contribution rather than mere acquisition or experience accumulation. These ethical principles represent not externally imposed limitations, but evolved understanding of how creation functions most effectively and fulfillingly within the interconnected field of universal intelligence. As your creation capacity develops, these principles typically emerge naturally from your expanding awareness rather than requiring forced compliance. Creation as spiritual practice. Beyond its practical applications for manifesting specific life circumstances, conscious creation ultimately represents a profound spiritual practice through which you participate in the fundamental creative nature of existence itself. From this deeper perspective, each act of deliberate creation becomes not merely pragmatic manifestation, but sacred participation in universal creative intelligence. This spiritual dimension reveals several profound aspects of the creation process that transcend mere manifestation technique. Creation as expression. At the deepest level, your creations represent expressions of the unique qualities, gifts, and purposes that constitute your essential nature. Rather than creating to compensate for perceived lack or to escape unwanted conditions, creation becomes joyful expression of who you authentically are. Creation as exploration. Each creation experience represents an opportunity to explore aspects of consciousness, capabilities, and connections that might otherwise remain dormant. From this perspective, the creation journey itself contains as much value as the manifested outcome, transforming the process from mere means to intrinsically meaningful exploration. Creation as evolution. Your entire creation sequence across lifetime represents an evolutionary journey through which consciousness itself develops expanded awareness of its own nature and capacities. Individual manifestations serve this larger evolutionary current rather than existing as isolated achievements or acquisitions. Creation as communion. At the most profound level, conscious creation establishes direct communion with the creative intelligence of the universe itself, revealing the fundamental unity between your individualized creative capacity and the infinite creative power expressing through all existence. This spiritual perspective doesn't diminish practical creation effectiveness, but actually enhances it by aligning your manifestations with the deepest currents of universal intelligence, rather than with surface-level desires that often contain contradictory elements. The most powerful creators maintain simultaneous awareness of both pragmatic techniques and spiritual principles, creating not from desperate need but from overflowing expression of their essential creative nature. Living as conscious creator. As we conclude this exploration of conscious creation, consider how you might integrate these principles into your daily life, transforming not just specific manifestation projects, but your entire relationship with the creative process. This integration involves several key shifts in orientation. First, recognize that you are already creating continuously through your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions, not occasionally through specific techniques, but constantly through your moment-by-moment vibrational emissions. This recognition transforms creation from periodic activity to continuous awareness of your creative impact. Second, develop the capacity to witness your creative patterns in real time, rather than only through retrospective analysis. This witnessing awareness allows course correction before problematic patterns generate momentum, shifting from reactive response to proactive direction of your creative energy. Third, establish regular practices that maintain your optimal creative state, the vibrational condition in which preferred manifestations occur most naturally. These might include meditation, appreciation focus, creative visualization, conscious language patterns, or environmental curation that supports your creation intentions. Fourth, adopt the creator perspective regardless of current circumstances, maintaining creative choice even in situations that appear externally imposed or severely constrained. This perspective shift from reactor to creator represents perhaps the most fundamental transformation available through understanding the law of cause and effect. Finally, remember that creation mastery develops through consistent practice rather than perfect initial application. Like any profound skill, conscious creation improves through dedicated engagement with its principles, compassionate self-correction of inevitable missteps, and persistent return to the creator stance despite temporary regressions into victim perception. The journey of conscious creation ultimately reveals that you are neither helpless victim of circumstance nor all-powerful controller of experience, but rather creative participant in the magnificent unfolding of universal intelligence through your unique expression of its infinite potential. In this balanced understanding lies the true mastery of karma, the capacity to work with, rather than against the law of cause and effect, in co-creating a life of purpose, joy, and meaningful contribution. As you move forward from these teachings into your continued life experience, may you remember the profound truth expressed in the ancient Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, as below, so above. Your consciousness and the universal intelligence are not separate, but expressions of the same creative power. Different only in scope, but identical in essence. In this recognition lies your ultimate freedom to create, not from separation, but from unity with the creative source of all existence. Conclusion: living in alignment with karmic balance and wisdom. Throughout our exploration of the Karma Code, we have traversed the profound territory of universal law, specifically the law of cause and effect, uncovering its mechanisms, applications, and transformative potential in your life. As we conclude this journey, let us integrate these essential understandings into a cohesive framework for living in conscious alignment with karmic principles. The journey from unconscious to conscious creation. We began by examining how every thought, emotion, word, and action generates specific causes that inevitably return as the experiences of your life. This fundamental recognition revealed that nothing in your experience is random or accidental. All is the precise reflection of energies you have previously set in motion, whether consciously or unconsciously. From this foundation, we explored how to recognize the effects currently manifesting in your life as the natural harvest of previously sown seeds. This recognition process transforms your relationship with present circumstances, from victimhood to creative awareness, revealing even challenging situations as valuable feedback rather than arbitrary misfortunes. We then examined the energetic mechanics through which your thoughts and emotions generate ripples in the universal field that eventually return as tangible experience. Understanding this process illuminated why certain patterns persist despite your conscious desire for change, while also revealing the precise points at which intervention can transform these patterns. Our exploration continued with practical methodologies for breaking negative karmic cycles through systematic pattern interruption and conscious substitution. These approaches provided specific techniques for halting self-perpetuating sequences that may have operated for years or even lifetimes, creating space for new, empowering patterns to emerge. We then delved into the crucial role of intention, the why behind your actions, revealing how your underlying motivations fundamentally alter the karmic signature of everything you do. This understanding highlighted the importance of not just changing external behaviors, but purifying the intentions that animate them. This led naturally to an examination of karmic responsibility, the capacity to embrace full accountability for your life circumstances without falling into blame, guilt, or oversimplified views of complex situations. This responsibility perspective revealed itself not as burden, but as the very key to your creative empowerment. Finally, we explored comprehensive approaches for consciously applying your understanding of cause and effect to deliberately create preferred experiences. These methodologies transform theoretical knowledge into practical creative capacity, providing systematic frameworks for manifesting the life you choose, rather than unconsciously perpetuating established patterns. The transformed perspective. Through integrating these understandings, a fundamentally transformed perspective emerges, one that perceives existence not as random chaos punctuated by occasional meaning, but as an exquisitely ordered system of perfect fairness, operating through precisely calibrated cause-effect relationships. This perspective recognizes that your consciousness is causal rather than reactive, generating rather than merely responding to the circumstances you encounter. Every experience serves evolutionary purpose, providing exactly the feedback required for your continued development and awareness expansion. Free will operates within karmic parameters, offering genuine choice regarding how you respond to karmic returns while honoring the perfect justice of universal law. Personal responsibility coexists with compassionate understanding, allowing you to simultaneously own your creative role while extending grace to yourself and others, navigating complex karmic patterns. The present moment always offers fresh creative choice, regardless of how entrenched previous patterns may appear, or how powerful their momentum seems. This transformed perspective doesn't deny life's challenges or sugarcoat genuine difficulties, but rather contextualizes them within a framework of meaning, purpose, and creative opportunity that transforms your entire relationship with experience. Practical integration. The ultimate value of understanding the karma code lies not in philosophical contemplation, but in practical application. Consider these approaches for integrating karmic principles into your daily life. Morning intention. Setting. Begin each day with conscious establishment of the causal energies you choose to generate, specifying not just what you intend to do, but how you intend to be as you move through your activities. Hourly awareness check. Set regular reminders to pause and assess your current thoughts, emotions, and actions, asking, "What am I currently sowing that will inevitably return as experience?" Effect to cause tracing. When encountering significant circumstances, positive or challenging, practice tracing them back to their causal origins in your thoughts, emotions, intentions, and actions, identifying the specific patterns that have generated these experiences. Conscious pattern. Interruption. When you notice familiar negative patterns activating, implement immediate interruption techniques, changing thought focus, shifting emotional state, altering behavior, or applying specific pattern-breaking methodologies explored in Chapter 4. Evening review practice. Conclude each day with reflective assessment of the causal energies you've generated, acknowledging both conscious creation successes and areas where default patterns operated unconsciously, setting intention for continued improvement. Vibrational maintenance. Implement regular practices that sustain your optimal creative state. Meditation, appreciation focus, physical activity, creative expression, nature connection, or whatever specifically elevates and stabilizes your energetic signature. Creation accountability partnership. Establish relationships with others committed to conscious living through karmic principles, providing mutual support, compassionate feedback, and shared celebration of creation successes. Through these practical approaches, karmic understanding transforms from intellectual concept to lived experience, gradually becoming your natural orientation rather than effortful implementation. Navigating challenges. As you implement these principles, certain challenges predictably arise. Anticipating these challenges allows navigating them skillfully rather than being derailed by them. First, expect periods of heightened awareness of your responsibility for previously unconscious creations. This awareness sometimes triggers guilt or self-recrimination for past patterns and their consequences. Remember that these patterns operated before you had tools to recognize or transform them, warranting compassion rather than judgment. Second, anticipate resistance from others accustomed to your previous creative patterns. As you shift from unconscious to conscious creation, relationships based on former patterns may experience disruption, requiring either transformation or compassionate release. Third, recognize that deeply entrenched karmic patterns often demonstrate significant momentum before yielding to new creative directions. This momentum sometimes creates the discouraging impression that your conscious creation efforts aren't working when they're actually building the critical mass required for pattern transformation. Fourth, understand that conscious creation requires navigating between opposite errors, excessive control, manipulating specific forms rather than creating aligned essences, and insufficient direction, abdicating creative responsibility through passive acceptance of whatever manifests. Finally, accept that karmic mastery develops through spiraling evolution rather than linear progression. You'll likely experience cycles of expanded awareness, followed by apparent regression into familiar patterns, gradually establishing higher baselines of conscious creation with each cycle. By anticipating these challenges, you transform them from discouraging obstacles into recognized developmental phases, maintaining momentum through the natural oscillations of the growth process. The invitation. As we complete our exploration of the Karma Code, recognize that you stand at a profound threshold of possibility. Having glimpsed the mechanics through which your consciousness creates your experience, you can never fully return to the illusion of victimhood, randomness, or disconnection from your creative power. This understanding represents both extraordinary privilege and significant responsibility. The privilege of conscious participation in the creative process and the responsibility of wielding this creative power with wisdom, compassion, and evolutionary purpose. The choice before you involves not whether to create, for you cannot help but generate causes that produce effects, but whether to do so consciously, deliberately, and in alignment with your highest understanding of universal principles. This choice determines not just the specific circumstances you will experience, but the fundamental quality of your relationship with existence itself. Choose, therefore, to awaken fully within the creative process. Choose to recognize every thought, emotion, word, and action as a seed inevitably growing into experience. Choose to assume complete responsibility for your creative power without guilt for past unconscious creation or anxiety about perfect future implementation. Above all, choose to align your personal creative capacity with the infinite creative intelligence of the universe itself, recognizing that your individual consciousness represents not separate creative agency, but unique expression of the one creative power manifesting through all existence. In this alignment, you discover that mastering karma involves not dominating the law of cause and effect through force of personal will, but rather harmonizing with its perfect wisdom through conscious cooperation with its underlying purpose, the evolution of consciousness itself through the precise feedback mechanism of manifested experience. May your journey forward be characterized by ever-increasing awareness of your creative nature, ever-expanding capacity for conscious manifestation, and ever-deepening appreciation for the perfect justice, wisdom, and love expressed through the universal law of cause and effect. As you implement these principles with patience, persistence, and compassion, may you discover firsthand the extraordinary liberation that comes from living in conscious alignment with the Karma Code. I'm curious, which karmic patterns have you started to recognize in your own life after listening today? Perhaps you've noticed how certain relationship dynamics keep repeating, or how your thoughts about money seem to manifest in your financial reality. Share your insights in the comments below, as identifying these patterns is your first step toward consciously redirecting the seeds you're planting. If you're ready to begin working with the law of cause and effect in your daily life, start with this simple practice. For the next 7 days, pause 3 times each day and consciously check what you're thinking, feeling, and doing in that moment. Ask yourself, what kind of harvest am I creating right now? This brief but powerful awareness check will begin shifting you from unconscious reaction to conscious creation, allowing you to literally change your destiny through intentional choices. If today's exploration of universal law resonated with you, please support this channel by hitting the like button and subscribing for more transformative content. Next Monday, we'll dive into the power of mind, revealing how your thoughts literally shape the matrix of reality around you and providing practical techniques to harness this extraordinary creative force. Don't miss it. Click subscribe now and activate the notification bell to continue your journey of conscious creation.